Purple, though, is right out. Only the richest Athenians have purple robes. Oh no. Do you know... Are you interested in the particulars of how paint and textiles and how a ship is run, hey? Is this your favorite part of a story? Alright, so as I said, purple's right out, kitty cat. Only the richest Athenians have purple robes. I think the color comes up from smashed up beetles, and it's hard to get enough to dye even a small square inch of cloth. A considerable amount of materials were... Oh, I didn't see you there. I can't see anything in this stupid helmet. This story is about Jerricles. Probably the most unimportant person to have ever lived. Born in ancient Greece, he is a common Athenian citizen. We will be following his story in his own words. These are scrolls that have been recently found in the bathrooms of the British Museum of History. One. First winter entry of first year. Dear Journal, my name is Jerricles, Jerry for short. It's the year 415 BC. I'm 20 years old and was born in the year 435 BC. It sounds backwards, but we count down our years here. We don't know what we're counting down to, but we're all very excited to find out. I recently came into some papyrus scrolls and decided to keep a record of my life. You like garbage, Jerry. Take these home. Wow. This is a new journal, so I would like to summarize my life up to this point. I was born in 435 BC in Athens, Attica, ancient Greece. But my story actually begins with a dream my father had. One night, after eating some old rotten meat, because it's hard to preserve food here, my dad had a bad dream about a cloud of abstract horror and terror emanating from my mother's, birthing area. My mom was, in reality, pregnant, and my dad is a rich and ambitious man. He took the dream to be an omen, a warning that his new baby will bring disaster to his business. So when the baby was born, he put it in a little clay jar. Then he grabbed me from my play corner and left the two of us kids in a field outside the city, where all the other abandoned babies are left. Don't move until I come back with your birthday present. I love you, Daddy. What? I think it's about noontime. The ancient world is a rough place. If a baby does not meet a parent's qualifications, they get chucked out. You put your baby in a clay jar, so if they don't get picked up by someone else, they have a ready-made coffin. Dad always thought I was weird. So, he decided to take care of two problems with one abandonment. It was just me and my brother, Bobicus, who was sleeping in the jar, waiting to die of exposure. Luckily, my foster dad found us. At the time, there was a plague in Athens. Everyone was walled up in the city as the Spartans were ravaging the countryside. The city was crammed with people, so the disease spread easily. All 6 of my foster dad's children died. There's a lot of emotional trauma in a loss like that, but it's also an economic one as well. My foster father needed help and could not afford slaves, so he took us home. We were raised in a Thetes household, the lowest class of Athenian citizens. Less than a third of the city's inhabitants are citizens, so even though we are poor and lower class, we are still part of an elite. We still get to look down at non-citizens. Skip ahead a few years, and Bob and I were playing with some kids. Bob declared himself the king, and overawed by his noble bearing, all the other children dutifully took his orders. Some rich kid wanted to be king, and Bob struck him with a stick. The father of the rich kid was ready to beat Bob when... Stop! That's my son! It was our first father, Herodotus. "Did you see how that kid thought he should be in charge for no reason?" said our real father in his loud, raspy voice. "He has the spirit of a nobleman. He also sort of looks like a baby I abandoned once." Our foster father told Herodotus he found us alone as babies, but he would be happy to reunite our family. "Thank you, good sir," said Herodotus. "I have always regretted my decision. You deserve a reward for bringing our family back together. You can keep the other one, with my thanks." So Bob went to live with our biological father, and I stayed with our foster dad, who, unfortunately, died soon after from a resurgence of the plague. It wasn't an easy death, as the disease is just as cruel as everything else in this world. I did more than watch my foster family slowly die off. Growing up, I watched the ships come and go from the harbor of Piraeus. Every free day, I would walk up and down the thin hallway created by the famous long walls connecting the harbor to the city. At this point, we had been at war with Sparta for a while, and the walls kept them out of the city as our ships came and went freely. We were a land island, cut off from the rest of Greece. I would watch the rowers board their triremes and row off to some adventure. Since as long as I could remember, I wanted to be a rower. I wanted to leave the walls of this claustrophobic city and breathe the free air of the sea and go on a grand adventure somewhere, find a town and take all their stuff. I want to make my fortune. War booty is where you make the real money in this world. The war with Sparta lasted an entire decade, but a truce was signed, just as I was coming into adulthood. At this time I lived with my foster mother, Agreste, in the city. I am able to support us with the various jobs my biological father gives me. He is rich and is involved in many businesses. Sometimes I get a job on a boat at Piraeus and get to row around the harbor. I have my own paddle, as most rowers do. The jobs are good, but they're just practice for the real rowing I want to do. I want to be on a trireme. I want to be in the Navy. I have auditioned for many ships, but I was never quite good enough. There is less call for warship rowers during peacetime. If this was wartime, the standards would be achievable for me. My other love is the theater, specifically Sophocles. Even more specifically, his play, Oedipus Rex. It's about a king who was abandoned at birth because of a warning his father got in a dream. Euripides is popular right now. I just saw his play, Trojan Women. It's about the victorious Greeks sacking Troy at the end of the Trojan War. I found it aspirational but not as relatable as Oedipus Rex. And that is my life. Until now. 2. Second winter entry of first year. Dear Journal, the great thing about democracy is you get to go to assemblies. The Pnyx is where all the citizens gather to vote on important issues. It's a little hill not far from the Agora. We meet outside because the weather is so hot in Greece. Some people find these gatherings boring, and you can't make decisions if there are too few citizens voting. So we use big burly Scythian slaves to encourage attendance. Before each meeting, the slaves go out into the Agora, our marketplace, and gather up anyone who looks like a voting-age male. If you get marked by one of their red-dyed ropes, you're charged with a fine. We take participation seriously here. Today was important. We were discussing war. I got up late because we have no machines that can wake us up in the morning. I can't afford fines, so I ran as fast as I could to the meeting place. I tripped on a herm in my haste. Some of them stick out pretty far. They are statues with the head of the god Hermes. He protects travelers, so you will see a Hermes at most intersections. They are incredibly common. As you see, these statues depict more than just the head of Hermes. This other part of the statue can be a tripping hazard sometimes. I was caught by a Scythian. He got me on the arms as I was picking myself up. Bad luck because I owed money to everybody. Rent for the landlord, the bread bill for the baker, not to mention the gambling debts I owe Mom. I suppose I could go double or nothing at our next dice game. Then I thought I could just hide my mark under my cloak during the assembly until I got home and could change my shirt. I hurried to the Pnyx. When I got there, Nicias was already speaking. Nicias is a respected statesman and successful general. His success in the battlefield has more to do with his luck than tactics, though. But as many of us believe here, you want to be around someone with good luck, just like you want to avoid someone with the bad kind. He's also the guy who's responsible for the peace we're enjoying now. It was quite packed there, shoulder-to-shoulder room. Although this assembly was convened to consider the preparations to be made for sailing to Sicily, I think that we should still examine whether we should send our ships at all. It sounded like Nicias was still apprehensive about the war we voted for last week. We had delegates here from Segesta the other day. Segesta is a city on the island of Sicily. They asked for our help because the city of Syracuse was pushing them around. Alcibiades, another statesman who's coming up, put forward a motion to send an expedition to Sicily and to conquer Syracuse. Of course we voted in favor. It gives me a better chance of becoming a rower. I must remind you that we are leaving many enemies at home, like Sparta, to make new ones far away. Nicias is a nice enough guy, but he's always looking on the negative side. Athens has had a naval empire since Pericles, and we've beaten everyone before. Why can't we do it again? Why can't we conquer the whole world? Only now are we enjoying some respite from plague and war. We should use these benefits on ourselves and not on a foreign war. And if there be any man here overjoyed at being chosen for command, who urges you to war for his own ends, and is too young to be a general, and seeks to be admired for his stud of horses. Yeah. The guy Nicias is talking about is Alcibiades. He is the nephew and ward to the late great Pericles. It was Pericles' idea to wall us all in together. I don't think Nicias and Alcibiades like each other. Athenians, I have a better right to command than others. And, at the same time, I believe myself to be worthy of it. I like his confidence. Alcibiades is the cool bad boy of Athens. He's my favorite. He and his foster father Pericles are and were members of the wealthiest and oldest family in Athens, the Alcmenidae. Any splendor that I may have exhibited at home, paying for expensive plays or otherwise, is naturally envied by my fellow citizens. But in the eyes of foreigners, it has an air of strength. It is good when a man uses his fortune to benefit not only himself, but his city. You see, he uses his fortune to make us awesome. Alcibiades sent 7 chariots to represent us at the Olympic Games. Most rich people struggle just to send 1. The talk is that Alcibiades wants to be a tyrant, the sole, unchallenged ruler of a city. It's true he's part of the oligarchic party, that is, he's in favor of families such as his running everything. Nicias was a Democrat. He believed more people should have a share in power, excluding, of course, women, slaves, people who have only one Athenian parent, and so on. While my flower is still in its bloom, and Nicias' luck holds, why not use us to our utmost potential? Alcibiades continued his speech, saying the Sicilians would be pushovers and that we should actually be expanding our empire or risk atrophy. I spied Nicias in deep thought. He looked up like a chime went off in his head. He clearly had a new tactic in mind. I see, Athenians, that you are thoroughly bent on the expedition. But I say to you, again, the Syracusans are far from being pushovers, and they have a home advantage. I will tell you what we need to accomplish this adventure." He then gave us a long list of the people and equipment we would need. It seemed like a lot. "We'll need at least 5,000 hoplites from here and our allies, archers from Crete, slingers, siege works, thousands of measures of grain, not to mention all the ships needed for transport, and we would need at least 100 triremes, and the thousands of rowers needed for those." That last bit caught my attention. I wanted to vote for that. I wanted to be one of those thousands of rowers. The guy beside me said, "Wow, that's a lot. Should we reconsider?" I may have freaked out a little. "Are you getting between me and my live stream?" "No, sorry." Talk, talk, talk. It continued while I bounced with enthusiasm to vote. Finally, a motion was put forward. 3 generals would be in command. Democracies at this time hated the idea of one man being in charge. That's what tyrannies and monarchies did. These generals were Nicias, Alcibiades, and Lamachus. Lamachus is a general not as rich as Nicias and Alcibiades, but he is the most experienced fighter of the 3. It was thought that the 3 would balance each other out. The youthful enthusiasm of Alcibiades would be tempered by the wiser, cautious Nicias. Lamachus was the experienced general. They would also be given full powers to gather as many men and supplies they needed. The vote was an overwhelming yes. The assembly broke up, and I needed to get home to change into an unmarked shirt, then talk to my dad. However, I was accosted by old man Socrates. I assume he's homeless. He has no shoes and he smells. Not only that, he's always stopping people in the streets asking nonsensical questions. I caught his eye. "You there, young man," he bellowed into my nose. "Why are you so eager to fight? Wars and revolutions and battles are due simply and solely to the body and its desires. All wars are undertaken for the acquisition of wealth. And the reason why we have to acquire wealth is the body, because we are slaves in its service." "Yes, sir," I said, smiling and nodding, catching some of what he said. "I am too a slave of my body. I need food. A war will get the money I need for it." He looked befuddled, then he spoke. "Have you sealed your ears with wax? That is what I said. We must set our soul free from it. We must behold things as they are." "How prettily you speak, wise sir," I said, needing to get to my father's before sundown. "Someone should write down your sayings. I must leave now. Here, take these 3 obli and buy yourself a sandwich." "Aha, caught you. Pay up." I was spotted by a Scythian, and he took my last obli. When I got home, I changed as quickly as I could. My mom called to me from across our 20-foot by 20-foot room we call home. "Did you get tomorrow's bread?" "No, I was fined. I have to go to my biological dad and ask for money." "Did you hear? We're going to war with Sicily." "You can't leave," said my shocked mother. "I'm old and enfeebled, and there are no homes for old people." "I haven't been accepted by a ship yet," I said as I went out the door. "Gotta go, sun's going down." "If you're asking for money," Mom yelled as I ran out the door, "make sure you get the dice money you owe me. I don't want to hear any of this double or nothing crap." I tried to beat the sun. I was tripped again. "You always look so pleased." As I said, my biological dad is rich, so he lives in a house with multiple rooms. At first he didn't allow me in his home, but my biological mom put an end to that. She encourages me to come and go as I please. She said it was the least they could do after leaving me for dead. But it wasn't just bread money I wanted from my dad. I hoped he could use his connections to get me on a trireme. "I have the solution to both your problems, Jerry," my dad said in an uncharacteristically chipper way. "You can roll for me. In fact, here's a week's pay in advance." Dad tossed me a bag with 7 drachmae in it. I felt out of the loop. "I bought a trireme, Jerry. I'm a trierarch," exclaimed my dad. "A real ship's captain." "That was fast," I said. "We just had the vote." "It's been in the works for a while," he said. "I'm sick of being a second-class citizen. I want to be a Pentacossamadimnoi, a first-class citizen. They get to be in the high offices. One day, I'll be one of the 10 generals." The highest officials in the government are the 10 generals, or strategoi. They are elected by the 10 tribes of Athens. Each general shares equal power. As I said, democracies hate single rulers. Dad has ambitions for the top. How much property you have decides your class. As you see, I'm poor and own nothing, so I'm at the bottom. A thetis. If you were rich, you were expected to contribute to the city. This was called a liturgy. If you were really rich and a Pentacossamadimnoi, you were expected to pay for the really expensive stuff, like plays or maintaining warships, like Dad decided to do. "It's not a new ship," he continued. "I could only afford a second-hand one. It's a little soggy, a little leaky, but it has character, and it has more soul than Simon's sleek, cutting-edge vanity project." "He spends his money on ships rather than dice and coin tossing," said my biological mom, Elpenice. "Bah!" scoffed Dad. "Gambling is the only thing you can do to pass the time. It's not like there's some magical tablet that lets me watch plays or read scrolls." "He has discipline," retorted my mom. "He has money," re-retorted my dad. "Old money. The Philiad's age and wealth rivals that of the Alcmenidae. He was handed his riches and his newest, top-of-the-line trireme." There was a short, uncomfortable silence. Then, "I could have married Simon, you know." "Oh, I fall asleep every night wishing that you married Simon instead of me. I wouldn't have all these stupid kids dependent on me," cried Dad. "You only have 2 kids, Henry," reminded Mom. "Yeah, I got one kid who can't be a rower without nepotism, and another one who needs thousands of drachma for armor," complained Dad. "But don't get me wrong. I'm glad Bob is going to be a hoplite on this trip." Dad looked around. "Ah, there you are, Bob," said my dad to my brother. "Standing right beside me all this time. Quiet and stoic. His exploits on this adventure will help raise the name of the Pussy Williads. That's us. To the heights occupied by the Philiads and the Alcmenidae. Are you ready to kill some Sicilians, Bob?" "Yep," answered my brother. I was a born rower, and my brother was a born hoplite. In this gritty world where children are encouraged to fight each other to toughen them up, my brother always came out on top. He likes to punch. A hoplite are armored soldiers who fight in a formation called phalanxes. These guys are usually from the middle to upper classes because they have such expensive armor. Anyway, Dad was getting drunker, so I left before his good mood turned. 3. Third winter entry of first year. Dear Journal, it's been a few weeks, but I've been too tired to do anything after training, even write. You see, I've been doing some basic rowing training at Piraeus. Not only do we train our bodies, but we learn all about the trireme as well. As you can see, there are 3 levels of rowers on a trireme, hence the tri in the name. You don't want to be on the bottom. There aren't many bathroom breaks during a rowing day, and people get scared during battle. There can be as many as 180 rowers to a ship, along with a few marines, so it also gets cramped in there, as well as hot. The main way you fight with a trireme is by ramming it into your enemy. Rowing is actually a very technical skill that requires intense teamwork. Turning, starting, stopping, and any other movements takes incredible coordination among all the rowers. Today when I got home, I was surprised by a punch to the face. My mom had bought a slave. I asked her why.
The loss of an able-bodied 20-year-old is quite a loss to this household, so I used your advance to buy a slave to replace you,
she replied. That was our only money, I said in shock. I won't get paid till after training. I'm going to have to start a tab with the baker again.
It's worth it,
my mom retorted.
You'll be sending money, but I'll still need someone to draw water from the well, clean the apartment, and satisfy my other old womanly needs. All of them.
It's lucky the expedition is leaving next week. My expenses continue to mount. 4. First summer entry, first year. Disaster! Absolute disaster! And they're blaming Alcibiades for it. The very next morning, after I learned Mom bought a slave, and the morning of the first day of summer, I was leaving my home for training, when I didn't trip over our Herm. You seem less jovial today. Oh dear. Oh dear. When I heard a shout, I learned that this wasn't about me. I saw that my neighbor's Herm was desecrated in the same way. Soon I learned that all the Herms in Athens had their appendages chipped off. There was another huge assembly at the Pnyx. Every citizen was there. They thought that this might have been part of a plot by Alcibiades to become a tyrant. A big accusation that would require a long investigation. But we were only 6 days from leaving, and I had debts to be paid. Many other citizens were in the same position, especially people like my dad, who bought ships or other supplies for the expedition, and expected the war booty to pay it off. The harbor in Piraeus was now full of Athenian and allied ships. We were ready to go. No one wanted to postpone the expedition over this, even though everyone was quite distressed. Some thought this was a bad omen for our adventure. Alcibiades demanded a trial right there and then. He was willing to risk the penalty of death to prove his innocence. In the end, it was decided to continue with the expedition, and Alcibiades was not charged. For now, the dismemberments of the Herms remain a mystery. At least I still get to go on my adventure. 5. Second summer entry, first year. Dear Journal, today was the big day, and my eyes had never seen anything so magnificent. I doubt anyone has. I hear that this is the largest expedition we have ever sent. All the ship's captains had spared no expense outfitting and decorating their vessels. My foster and biological families were at the docks to say farewell. Dad showed us our ship. Here it is, the Melita, or B. See how I made the prow a needle? That was my idea. This is a proud day for me, continued Dad. I am a first-class citizen going out to add to the glory of my polis. And I have my son sailing right beside me. It's a proud day for me too, Dad, I said. I get to share in your... What? Ew, no. I mean, Bob is sailing with me, as a Marine. Why aren't you down below yet? What's that, a wasp? Mocked a voice. Oh, crap, Dad said under his breath. It's Simon. Is that a stinger? Aren't those usually on the back? You should repaint your trireme and go into battle ass first. It's a bee, actually, shouted my dad over the merriment. Oh, my mistake, Simon falsely demurred. The bee is the perfect name for an annoying, buzzing pest. It's faster than your ship, desperately retorted Dad. Faster than the Nike? You must be joking. It's the most expensive ship in the fleet. No, I am not joking, Dad said defiantly. I will put money on it. What money do you have? I bet your ship put you into debt. I don't want your pennies. We'll wager something. Simon bit his fingers in thought. Yes, Simon began. The fleet will be having a little race to Aegina after the ceremony. We'll be resting and beaching our ships there for the night. The winner of this race will be the first to receive the Ship of the Month award. What about it? Asked an impatient dad. How about a side bet? Continued Simon. If your ship arrives on the island before mine does, my crew and I will beach your ship and clean it for you. Really? Dad asked. You, Mr. High and Mighty, will get in the muck and clean our ship? Yes, I will, answered Simon. And you'll do the same if you lose. All right, you have a bet, Dad said, offering a handshake. That's okay, Simon said, staring at the hand. I don't want to get dirty. Unless I have to. Simon and his cackling lackeys left. Dad was vibrating now. Everybody into the ship, said Dad. Let's get a head start.
Hold on, Henry,
chimed in my biological mom, Agristi.
I still need to say goodbye to my son. Give your mother a kiss, Jerry.
I did.
I'm sorry I let Henry abandon you all those years ago,
my mom began.
It's very hard in this city for a woman. 4 out of every 5 of our babies die on us. And every pregnancy is a potential death sentence. I guess you just become numb to loss at some point, but what was I going on about? Goodbye, Jerry.
Goodbye, Mom, I said, not sure what the speech was about. She went on to say goodbye to Bob. My foster mom was there with the new slave.
Bye, Jerry. Have a good time. Don't worry about me.
Sure. Bye, Mom. We boarded the Melita. I went down below. Being new, I get to be at the bottom. I found my spot. Wow. I'm a real trireme rower now. This was also the first time I met the rowers who would be my companions for the duration of this expedition. That's my spot, a big voice said, and I turned around to discover the body was just as big. Oh, sorry, I said as friendly as I could. I was told, and I'm telling you, get out of my spot. But before I could get any more words out, I was off the deck. Hey there, said a guy who wasn't as big as my new friend but looked like a living statue. Put the poor man down. What are you going to do about it? Said the big guy. I could lift you up, show you what it's like to be a little weakling, said the smaller guy as he brushed away a lock of golden blonde hair. Huh, I'd like to see. Before the big guy said more, he was up in the air. This small guy was holding up both of us. It was especially amazing because the height of the deck was only sitting room. We were put down after the big guy promised to leave me alone. Thanks, I said to my rescuer. I like to help, my rescuer said, then pointed his fingers at me with his thumbs sticking up, a gesture I have never seen before. I'm Archilles. Archie for short, said my rescuer. It was nice of him to help, but there's something about his extreme good looks and strength that I hate. Later, I learned that the big guy's name was Humongous. Then a very small person with a very big mustache sat beside me. Hi, I tried to introduce myself but was cut off. You're the Nepo baby. Some of us had to work to get here, he continued. Some of us aren't born with the same privileges as others. What privileges? I asked. I grew up poor. Yeah, he spat out. But your father owns the ship, and you're a citizen. Both your parents are Athenian. Oh, you mean you're... I began, cluing in on this man's identity. That's right. I'm a metic. My name is Dionysus. Everyone calls me Dino, he said. Only my mother was a citizen, which means I count as foreign-born and not a citizen. There are few places open for metic rowers. It took a lot of hard work and hustling for me just to be here. I decided to let him be. He looked a little off. He's wearing an obviously fake mustache. A trumpet sounded and the whole assembly went silent. The herald led a group prayer. Then sacrifices and toasts were made. The impressive parade of ships orderly filed out of the harbor. We were going to challenge the Syracusans with 130-odd ships, about 5,000 hoplites and some archers and slingers. I was doing well rowing. I remembered all the commands and was in perfect synchronization with all my fellow rowers. When we were well on our way, the race began. Our ship was feeling a bit sluggish. Triremes take on a lot of water, older ones more so. We were keeping pace with the rest of the fleet, but soon they were edging ahead of us. Eventually, we were pretty far behind. However, the Nike was lagging behind us as well. My dad was up top. "Ha!" he gloated. "All that money and his ship can't keep up with the rest of the fleet? Look, he's panicking!" Down below, I was beginning to tire out. "Don't slow down, Nepo," yelled Dino. I assumed referring to me. "We're almost past them." The heat in my pumping arms were unbearable. We were in a hole that was cramped, hot and smelly, the odor mostly coming off of sweating bodies. I could hear my dad dancing on top of me. But then, the Nike crept forward. Soon, it was pulling ahead of us. Then it reached the main body of the fleet. Soon the rich guy's ship was past everyone. It turned out Simon had the fastest ship in the Navy. The captain, my dad, wailed loudly. "Ah!" He later told me that he could see Simon smirking as he gave the order to speed up. He had played with us. The Melita was so old and waterlogged that we turned out to be dead last. It was humiliating, and we had to pull both the Melita and the Nike out of the water and clean them after a long day of rowing. Triremes have to be taken out of the water and dried on the beach every night. This ship is a complicated weapon system and takes constant maintenance. The Nike's crew had a big laugh at our misery. Not a great first day. 6. Third summer entry, first year. Dear Journal, I am currently beached outside the walls of Rhegium. This is the furthest our family has ever gone. My whole life I was walled up in Athens. I'm okay with being outside right now. A couple of weeks ago we left Aegina. There were no more races. We wheeled around the Peloponnese, homeland of our perpetual enemy, the Spartans. We stopped at Corcyra for a few days, where the fleet regrouped. The fleet made the crossing between Greece and Italy. As Corcyra is very close, it only took a day to sail. All the cities, from heel to toe on the Italian boot, are Greek colonies. Greece isn't known for its farmland. Many cities find themselves with more people than they can feed. We were forced to send out colonists to found their own towns, and hopefully find a way to feed themselves. As a result, you can find us all over the Mediterranean. If you were wondering, Syracuse was found by Corinthian colonists. Corinth is also known for its powerful navy. As we coasted along the instep, it was eerily quiet. Our Greek cities were closing their gates to us. They didn't even let the markets out of the city. We could not shop or refuel, and definitely none of them wanted to join our expedition. But I guess all cities are wary of strange armies. If you let them in, they may not leave. I was counting my strokes when I was interrupted by Trajan women? Up from Aegean caverns, pool by pool of blue salt sea. Humongulus was reciting Euripides, and everyone was into it. He recited the whole play, and he was playing all the parts. When he completed the play, he said he needed a break. I turned around and spoke to Humongulus. "You memorized Trajan women?" I asked. "I've memorized all of Euripides," he proudly replied. "How about Sophocles?" I asked, hoping to hear him again. "No," he said bluntly. "I find his stuff to be very unrelatable." "I find you to be unrelatable," I replied under my breath. We beached at Rhegium, at the tiptoe of Italy, where you can see Sicily on a clear day. Syracuse is only a few days further by ship. While the fleet was regrouping, our 3 generals decided to send a contingent of ships to Segesta. These are the guys who asked us to fight the Syracusans and promised to help pay for this very expensive military operation. The Melita went along too. We rowed across the north of Sicily and docked in Segesta's harbor. My brother Bob and Dad went ashore with the other delegates to seek the money Segesta promised. They returned shortly after. No one looked happy. When we beached the ship for the night, Dad told us a most fanciful, Herodotus-like story. Alcibiades had led the delegation, which included Bob and Dad. They marched to the city's agora and were met with a delegation from the city. Alcibiades asked for the money. Yeah, about that. We don't have the money. The head delegate nervously laughed. You don't have? Alcibiades shouted before he caught himself. He then angrily whispered in disbelief. You said you could pay for the expedition. I said you could pay. Were you lying to us this whole time? Yes, said the delegate. But how? Jumped Alcibiades, shouting a little now. We sent guys months ago. They saw all your piles of silver. You had tons of it at the temple and at the banquets. We tricked you, said the delegate contritely. To impress you, we borrowed as much silver as we could from our neighboring cities. We gathered it all up in the temple of Aphrodite and showed the collection to your delegation. What about the banquets? Asked Alcibiades. Where did you get the silver for those? This was a little clever, the official said with contrite pride. When your delegation retired before the banquet, we secretly moved all the silver objects from the temple to the banquet hall. There were a couple of times where we were almost caught and had to come up with wild stories on the fly. It was quite farcical, actually. That was the end of Dad's story. We did get the 30 talents from the suggestions, but that was far less than what we needed. We returned to Rhegium. People were upset. Our 3 generals are currently trying to figure out what to do next. Well, good night. 7. 4th summer entry, 1st year. Dear Journal, the Melita is heading to Syracuse tomorrow. Maybe I'll get to see one of them. A Syracusan, I mean. After the bad news from Segesta, the generals were constantly meeting with each other. The usual guy who stood in the corner and did all the wine dispensing was sick, so I was randomly grabbed by a petty officer to fill in. A pitcher of wine was shoved in my hands, and I was told to stand quietly until someone held out an empty cup. I got to witness a high-level meeting with my own eyes. A big swoosh of the tent's door flap introduced Alcibiades to the room. I was seeing my idol up close for the first time. I could smell his perfume. It took a lot for me not to faint. Then Nicias shuffled in, muttering over the current problem, followed closely by Lamachus, pounding the ground with his feet. I'll write down the conversation they had. And how is running away the solution? We don't have the resources. Have you not seen the huge armada out there? Our mission is to end the hostilities between Segesta and Syracuse. If Segesta can't pay for the expedition, we shouldn't be using our resources to fight their war. And so your suggestion is to convince 2 enemies to be friends. Stop shaking, wine guy. You're getting wine all over my cuffs. Get away, go. Anyway, we should spend the rest of this summer and winter setting up alliances on Sicily, then attack the next fighting season. Ha ha! Politicians always want to wait. I'm dying to know what you have to suggest. I have fought more battles than either of you, and won! I know exactly what we should do. Attack! We have been getting reports that the Syracusans are in complete disarray. and they're divided on what actions to take. If we strike the city now, with our full force, the Syracusans will be shocked into surrender. However, if we wait, they have the time to prepare and harden their resolve. You have a point, but... Ew, Can we get another wine guy in here? That's as much as I can remember before I fainted. It was decided that Alcibiades would lead a contingent of ships down to Syracuse. There, he would get the lay of the land, then sail back. On the way, Alcibiades would look for allies and maybe a proper harbor to spend winter in. So, tomorrow, we'll get a look at Syracuse. I wonder if I might buy a place there with my war booty. After we take the city, everyone will be our slaves. 8. 5th summer entry, 1st year. Dear Journal, I'm sitting at an inn, writing in my war diary while chewing on some gritty bread. Thankfully, we found a city that let us in. A week ago or so, the Melita set off with a small fleet led by Alcibiades. As we made our way down the coast of the island, the reception wasn't much better than it was in Italy. We had high hopes for the city of Catana, as they were sympathetic towards Athens. However, when we got there, a pro-Syracusan faction had control of the city, so we sailed on. I couldn't see anything when we reached Syracuse, as I was rowing down below. Alcibiades lined up the ships close enough to the city so his voice could be heard by the citizens. He read out a proclamation. We were allowed to go up. This is when I first saw Syracuse. The stony city looked beautiful and imposing. Alcibiades is so cool, I said absent-mindedly. Really? Growled Dino. What's so cool about him? I remember seeing him once when we were both young, I reminisced. He threw himself in front of an oncoming wagon who refused to stop for him. He knows how to get what he wants. I bet he does get everything he wants, grumbled Dino. I also have a childhood memory. One day in the Angora, I saw Alcibiades abduct his estranged wife with a gang of thugs. No one helped her. She died soon afterwards too, you know. A blow of the horn interrupted our conversation. Alcibiades was finished talking and we were off again. Catana refused us entry again, but they said Alcibiades could bring his case to the populace the next day. So we beached our ships just upriver from the city. I was now on the island of Sicily for the first time. After we finished our maintenance on the Melita, a messenger arrived saying Alcibiades was looking for volunteers from every ship. Dino, Achilles, Humongulus, and I were sent. Alcibiades was already in the middle of a speech. The rest of Catana will come over to us if we show them that we are a friendly bunch and have nothing to fear, said Alcibiades, addressing the crowd. So I need you to make your way, unseen, to Catana and wait outside the wall where I told you. I will give you the signal, and don't forget, bring your money. We hid near a section of the wall that was clearly unfinished. After a good long wait, a young boy peeped over the top and waved at us. I waved back. Some guys with big hammers then pounded on the fragile part of the wall until a human-sized hole was opened up. I guess that boy there was Alcibiades' signal. We didn't see anyone until we reached the Agora, where the residents were gathered, listening to Alcibiades speak. We mingled amongst the crowd. I bought a scroll on famous rowers. Once the people of Catana realized we were already amongst them, they felt intimidated enough to vote in favor of opening up their city to us. We had a new base, thanks to the cleverness of Alcibiades. As long as he's around, what could go wrong? 9. 6th summer entry, 1st year. I almost forgot about the Herms. A ship came in the other day and took away Alcibiades. He was arrested. Took a while to piece together the whole story, but things have developed at home. I understand he has been charged with the destruction of the Herms, and for mocking the Eleusinian mysteries. That last part was new. I don't know the story at home. I'm counting on my foster mom filling me in with a letter. But who knows when that might arrive. 10. 7th summer entry, 1st year. Dear Journal, we have been spending our days rowing up and down Catana's harbor. The Melita was on guard duty. Meanwhile, our 2 remaining generals have been scouting the island looking for allies. I didn't mind guard duty. I like going into the city when I'm off work. I enjoy having my supper on Catana's wall. Not only is there a good view of the sunset, but sometimes, if you're lucky, a Syracusan cavalryman will come up to the wall and hurl insults at you. "Arr, you farty Athenian!" The Syracusans were getting jumpy. They assumed we would have attacked their city by now, while they were still unprepared. We may have dithered too long because even our enemy wants us to do something. The Syracusan cavalry was going to be a problem. We only brought 30 horses with us, not enough to protect our hoplites. So, when the time came to finally sail to Syracuse, a clever plan was devised by our generals. They sent a double agent. Our spy told the Syracusan generals that the Athenians slept inside Catana while keeping their ships and weapons outside at night. If the Syracusans could choose a day to attack, Catana's citizens, friendly to Syracuse, would close the gates on the sleeping Athenians, trapping them. Luckily, the Syracusan generals agreed and set a date for an attack. When the day arrived and the Syracusan cavalry attacked, we were already gone. We sailed to Syracuse during the night as the enemy cavalry were riding to Catana. We had misdirected our enemy, and that gave us enough time to set up a position just north of Syracuse. The whole time I was rowing in the dark. I felt like I was playing a kid's game. 11. 8th summer entry, 1st year. Dear Journal, this summer ended rather dramatically. There was a big battle with lightning and everything. Our little trick to get the Syracusans to attack Catana while we sailed to Syracuse worked like a dream. By the time their cavalry noticed we were gone, we had sailed into the great harbor that Syracuse overlooks. While we were there, we put up a wall to protect our beached ships. By the time we were settled in the harbor, the enemy cavalry had returned, tired. They still had some life in them though, because they lined up for battle. My brother Bob, however, was a soldier, so he was sent up to fight. "You're not just fighting for your city. It's up to you to bring glory to our family's name and to uphold its honor on the battlefield. So, no pressure." No problem. Now, I'm not a soldier, I'm a rower. So I didn't fight in the battle. Instead, the crew and I spent the day building up the walls of our enclosure. When I got back to the Melita, my brother had already returned, with a big bandage around his calf. "It's you," Dad said, spotting me. "You may want to hear this." I'll write down what Bob said. As I was saying, we formed up 8 deep. The Syracusans were not as well trained as we were. They were still fumbling to get in order. Nicias then gave a speech to us, which went on for too long. As our archers and slingers skirmished with the enemies, the priests did the sacrifices. The horn sounded, and we locked shields. As we advanced, the flutes kept us in time. The Syracusans were caught unprepared. They scrambled to meet us. Our armies met, and a pushing game commenced. Despite the Syracusans' initial bumbling, they didn't break. "They have some fight in them, do they?" Yes, and we were in a stalemate for hours. I found myself pushed closer to the wall of shields. Then the thunder and lightning began. I got slashed in the leg by a spear, which was thrusting out from the shield wall. I grabbed onto it and was able to take it out of my unseen enemy's hand. "Oh my God! Then what?" The enemy suddenly melted away. It almost became a rout. A rout, Jerry, is when you attack a fleeing enemy. That's where the real killing happens. But the Syracusan cavalry prevented us from pursuing them. Where's the spear? It'll make a great war trophy. I'm afraid I don't have it. I threw the spear into the fleeing mob. Soon after, a truce was called and the battle ended. We just finished up setting up a trophy, which, Jerry, we put up every time we win a battle. We make it from the shields and armor of our enemy. The enemy comes and requests a truce to take their dead from the field, confirming that they have indeed lost the battle. Ha! We'll write that story down right now and send it off to Athens. Bob's story was over. We didn't hang around long. After the dead were buried and the booty collected, we returned to Catana for the winter. There was no point in attacking Syracuse without the cavalry. As you saw, Syracuse's cavalry stopped us from routing them, so it was decided to wait for reinforcements to arrive. We're on lighter duties now, until summer. I hope I get a letter from home soon. Still very curious about what happened to Alcibiades. Part 2. 13. First winter entry, second year. Dear Journal, Happy anniversary! It's been a whole year since I started recording my life events in my papyruses. Papyrusi? I don't know. I've come a long way in that time, going from not a rower to being a rower. It's winter now and we don't fight during this time. So the whole fleet is hanging out here in Catana, just north of Syracuse. Spirits are high. Good things started to happen after our victory outside of Syracuse. We're getting allies now. The Melita has mostly been on guard duty, and at night we just drink. Or gamble. There's really not much else to do. I did get a letter from my foster mom. There's been a lot of drama back home. The Alcibiades situation has taken a few surprising turns. I'll transcribe the letter.
Dear Jerry, I am well. I've hired out Jerricles. That's what I decided to call our new slave. He goes out and works during the day. Then at night, I take all his money and he cleans the house. Money and housekeeping aren't a problem right now. You might be curious about what happened with the Herms incident. Everyone was hot over the summer about it. As soon as you left, an inquiry began. There was a guy who said he saw a group of men gather in the moonlight the night the Herms were destroyed. He also gave a list of names that had some important rich people on it. Turns out, the guy was just a blackmailer and lying. We were reminded it was a new moon the night of the disfigurations and completely black. So, it was too dark for the accuser to have seen anything. He was executed. Then, there was this other guy. This guy I knew. I've heard him speak before. His name was Andocides. He was given immunity and he fingered his friends. The names he gave, however, were mostly people who were either killed or fled during this whole inquiry. After that, the investigations tapered off. I suppose everyone decided enough people were killed and democracy was safe. The mutilations may still be a mystery 2,500 years from now. Alcibiades' name didn't come up much during the investigation. You probably know that Alcibiades was arrested. He has many political enemies. Some rich guy's wife accused him of mocking the Eleusinian mysteries. She said Alcibiades and his friends used her home to jokingly perform the mysteries. The Eleusinian mysteries are taken seriously by a lot of people around here, including me. It was decided to put Alcibiades on trial, and a ship picked him up. Apparently he ran off when it was docked in Italy. A trial was held without him, and he was sentenced to death. There were rumors that Alcibiades is working for Sparta now. Who knows what secrets he'll tell them? Anyway, I hope you're doing well and collecting lots of war booty. Mom.
I had read the letter to my roommates because it had some news of Athens in it. Dino didn't like what he heard. "That coward," he scoffed. "To run off like that to our mortal enemy. All my brothers are dead because of the Spartans." His defection is only a rumor," I protested, clutching a carved figure of my hero. "The Eleusinian mysteries reveal the secret truths of the universe and the afterlife," Dino said with due solemnity. "Yeah, and I had no idea our political leaders were all lizard people," I said, quietly, because you could be killed for revealing the secrets of the mysteries. "That's only one revelation," Dino continued, annoyed at my interruption. "The Eleusinian mysteries were some of the few things that brought relief to the rigors of ancient life. Anyone can become a member of the mysteries, as long as you can pay the fees. The mysteries were the only time all classes mixed freely. It was one big party where everyone got drunk and did drugs. A special tea was passed around, made from a sacred flower. This flower water opens your mind to receive visions from the gods. The ceremony recreated the story of Persephone and her rebirth every spring. I won't go deep into it because, as I said before, I could be killed for revealing secrets. I heard the priests of the mysteries cursed Alcibiades after he was found guilty of mocking them. As you see, we take our religion here seriously. 14. Second winter entry, second year. Dear Journal, the Nike sucks. I was starting to vibe with my roommates and we were finding our stay quite enjoyable. Until the day we saw the Nike float into Catana's harbor. They were part of the escort bringing reinforcements of Athenian cavalry. "Look, it's a swarm of little bees," said a Nike rower as he and his friends passed us by. "Buzz, buzz, little bees." Then they circled us and made buzzing sounds with their mouths. It was weird and humiliating. Dino picked up some horse crap from the ground. City streets are full of this stuff. And then threw it at the head buzzer. This crap-covered rower calmly spat it out of his mouth and wiped his face. "Dirty move by a dirty metic," the crappy guy said with great prejudice. "You pretend you're a citizen, but your true nature will always come out." "We'll find 2 boats," responded Dino. I think his hair was standing up. "And we'll see who's the better rower out of the 2 of us. Come on, right now." "I've heard of you," said the guy. "You're always challenging people to races, like you have something to prove." Then there was a very gentle earthquake that knocked over some cups. "Uh-oh, Typhon is stirring," another Nike rower said. "Typhon?" asked Dino, unsure of the context of his mention. "Yeah," said the guy with crap on his face. "The giant monster Zeus buried in Mount Etna. You know, he has 100 heads and 1,000 snakes growing from his shoulders. That's where the island's earthquakes come from." He pointed to the big mountain that was overlooking Catana. "That mountain is a sacred, mystical place," began Crapface with great solemnity. "Not only is it the resting place of Typhon, it also holds the forges of Hephaestus, the god of smithing. They say he can create automatons, machines that can move on their own power. Think of a water pump, but it pumps itself, without you having to touch it." "Where is this all going?" asked Dino. "I saw one. An automaton, I mean," replied Crapface. "This is nonsense," scoffed Dino. "No, it's true," pleaded Crapface. "We were rowing by the mountain when the earth shook, much harder than it did now. The birds from the mountain flew off in fright, and they headed towards us. They made a strange noise as they flew overhead, like two swords scraping together. One landed in front of me while I was rowing. It was made of bronze, and it flashed the sun in my eyes as it turned its head. Its chirp sounded like shrieks. Before I could grab the amazing creature, it flew off, back to the mountain. I wanted to get one for my daughter, but no, it's too dangerous. Dangerous? Huh! Dino scoffed again. Are you too afraid to go to the mountain because you think Typhon will eat you up or something? You can't fight a giant monster like that! The Melita will do what the Nike is too cowardly to do, declared Dino. We'll go to that mountain and capture one of those bronze birds. It'll become our mascot and a reminder to the Nike that they suck. Dino did not wait for a reply. He shuttled us off to a new adventure. I think I may have heard some of the Nike crew suppressing laughs as we left. Third winter entry, second year. Dear Journal, Dino was so agitated by the Nike crew that we slipped out of the city that night to look for the bronze bird. It took a little time to make our way down to Mount Etna. When we got there, we saw steam seeping atmospherically from cracks in the ground. Where do we begin looking? I asked. I see some birds on that tree, but they look normal. I'll ask this man over here. Sir, have you seen any automatons? I am not an automaton, said the man, so we continued on. I don't know, said Archilles, Archie for short. Maybe those rowers were lying to us. Maybe, Dino was forced to admit. But why? Then we heard galloping in the distance. It could only be Syracusan horsemen. There were several of them, armed with spears and charging for us. Get back, ordered Archie. I'll take care of this. We hid amongst the rocks of the mountain as Archie stood his ground to the oncoming horses. When the horsemen reached him, Archie grabbed one of the guy's spears and tossed him off the horse. Then Humongulus picked up one of the horses and threw it at another. Dino jumped at the last guy and bashed him in the head with a rock. This guy fell off his horse, but he got up again. A little dazed, of course, so I tripped him and he stayed down. This fun little action sequence was a bonding experience for all of us because we accomplished a task by working together. We sealed this new friendship with a blood oath to murder the crew of the Nike, or at least Crapface and his friends. As you saw with the Herms incident, Athenians kill each other on a regular basis, so we aren't doing anything unusual. 16. Fourth winter entry, second year. Dear Journal, there are rumors that Alcibiades has defected to the Spartans, and that he had convinced them and Corinth to send help to Syracuse. One reason they might want to do this is that the Corinthians, Spartans, and Syracusans are all Doric. Dorians are one of the four main tribes that make up Greece. Dorians invaded the Peloponnese many generations ago and subjugated the local Greeks. They became Helots, state-owned slaves of the Spartans. Athenians are part of the Ionian tribe. As I said, Syracuse was founded by Corinthian colonists, which is why they will likely answer Syracuse's call for help. Sparta leads the Peloponnesian League, which is a group of allied city-states, including Corinth. Athens and our allies are at peace with the Peloponnesian League right now, after a very long and bloody war. If the Peloponnesian League sends help to Syracuse, would that break the peace and put us at war again with Sparta? I hope not. The main thing is, we will soon be fighting more than just Syracusans, as the Spartans and Corinthians are likely to send their help. As for Alcibiades, many people are disgusted by the idea that the man who convinced Athens to attack Syracuse had now convinced the Peloponnesian League to attack Athens. Nothing is confirmed yet, this is all rumor, so I will keep my carved figure with me for now. The days are becoming longer and warmer. Soon we will be taking another shot at Syracuse. We have plans for them. This summer's theme will be walls. Remember that oath? The Nike rowers we swore to kill eluded us for the rest of this winter. Getting back at them will be the second theme of this summer. 17. First summer entry, second year. Dear Journal, fighting season has begun. We sailed from Catana down to a little town called Leon. After a brief battle, the army took the heights of Epipoli, a plateau that overlooks Syracuse. Then we advanced closer to the city to build a fort we called the Circle. Many rowers were sent to help put it up, fast. I was one of them. The Circle is the focal point of our fortifications. We had a plan to build a wall to block off the city from the rest of the island and prevent anyone from coming in or out. As we were building the Circle, we saw that the enemy soldiers were beginning to form up. Our guys formed up quickly in response. The Syracusans, however, were still fumbling about. Finally, the Syracusan general gave up trying to get his guys information and led them back into the city. It made me feel better about our odds that they can't even organize themselves to fight. Their cavalry tried to slow down our building, but we have our own horses now. Whenever the enemy rides towards us, we usually hide behind some wooden barriers to protect us from projectiles. Then our own horses would swoop in. After a rather brutal fight, the Athenian cavalry would chase the Syracusans off the field. First, we were going to build a wall from the Circle down to the harbor in the south. They were working us in shifts, building day and night. Sometimes we foraged for rocks and timber. Other times we dug the ditch for the wall. Ditches make the walls taller. Us laborers would build the outer parts of the wall, then fill it with debris and dirt from the ditch. For a few days, our crew was put on stacking duty. We built up the side of the wall facing Syracuse. To our surprise, the side of the wall facing away from the city was being built by the crew from the Nike. Crapface was there. Obviously, we raced. We tried to build more wall than the Nike crew before the end of our shift. By our second shift, we had a bet going. Last one to the harbor has to forage for the winter's firewood. Foraging is not a safe venture on Sicily. We have cavalry now, but they can't be everywhere at once. So there's always a chance you could be killed by Syracusan horsemen looking for your firewood. It would be terrible if we had to stay out there twice as long to collect wood for 2 ships. We started off pretty well. Humongulus was large and strong enough to place heavy rocks at the top without effort. I stood at the top of the wall, helping Humongulus by staying out of his way. From my vantage point, I spotted another barrier, slowly emerging from Syracuse. The enemy was building a counter wall, intending to intersect ours and block our way. It is now a 3-way race between us, the Nike, and Syracuse. At one point, a group of Syracusans attacked our construction site. My brother Bob actually led the hoplites that chased them away. Bob and his 300 soldiers turned to the Syracusan counterwall and busted it up. One day, when we were well ahead of the Nike, Humongulus had a serious accident. One of the rocks he placed high up on the wall accidentally fell off and created a rather large bump on his head. His large lungs rhythmically moved in a state of sleep. He wasn't dead, but we lost our Olympian builder. 18. Second summer entry, second year. Dear Journal, we checked on Humongulus after our shift. He was looking rough and making strange gurgling noises. He must have been in a lot of pain. Dino said he saw Crapface running away from our wall after the stone fell on Humongulus. So, the Nike crew was trying to sabotage us. Okay, Dino thought out loud. We can't knock down their section of the wall. Our superiors might think we're trying to help the enemy. How can we slow the Nike down? I've got it, Archie snapped his fingers. I noticed they have a rare root here that upsets your bowels. We can sneak it into their food. Then they will really be slowed down by toilet breaks. So, we had a new plan to give the Nike diarrhea. We'll put the poison into their food as soon as we find enough poop root. 19. Third summer entry, second year. Dear Journal, as we planned our poisoning plot, the Syracusans began a second counterwall. Over the next couple of days, we had another three-way race. The Nike guys had leapt far ahead of us. We didn't tamper with the Nike's side of the wall to avoid any trouble from higher-ups. Then, the Syracusan counterwall crossed our building path. We were barred from building further. It looked like we may have lost both our races. General Lamachus, the old experienced soldier, visited our end of the wall. I saw him looking at the Syracusan counterwall, then talking with General Nicias. They were our last two leaders after Alcibiades left. "I just need 300 guys and I can break that wall," said the old general. "Sounds good. I'm going back to the circle," replied Nicias. "My kidney is killing me." On the day of the attack, my roommates and I were detailed to help out at the circle. There were only a few people about, and our round fort was undefended. I watched as Lamachus marched out with his little army down the ridge, across the marsh. There was a fight, but I didn't see it. I was picked for standing in the corner duty again. Nicias was sick and staying in the circle. I had to stay in a tent with him as he silently wrote letters or laid in bed moaning. He fell asleep eventually, so I decided to have a bit of wine until someone told me I could go. When I was nice and warm, some messenger burst into the tent. "Sir, we must leave," said the messenger. He's asleep." The messenger woke up Nicias. He was startled and held his side while he sat up, wincing all the way. "General Lamachus is pinned down by Syracusan cavalry, and an enemy detachment has just left the city and is heading towards the circle. Us!" "Damn," lightly swore Nicias. "We can't abandon the circle. We can't hold a siege without it." Nicias thought for a moment, grimacing from his pain. I sipped more of my unmixed wine. I didn't realize how much stronger it was. They say too much can make you see things, and I may have been sipping more than I should have. "Okay, gather up everyone in the circle. Have them bring out our siege equipment and timber all the stuff we have lying around. We'll set it on fire and create a wall of flame around the fort. The Syracusans will not be able to cross it." I got very excited by the idea. "Let's burn this mother down! Come on, Yellow Penguin!" I helped to build the wooden barricade. A huge fire was started. I danced atop the wall in a naked silhouette, urging our men on and shouting obscenities at our enemy. Then I blacked out. 20. Fourth summer entry, second year. Dear Journal, the next memory after the fire was a gentle kick to the head. It was Dino. "There you are. You didn't come back to the ship last night. Thought you were dead." Dino walked me back to the Melita. I felt awful. The fire was still going, and the smoke was killing me. The unmixed wine I kept helped with the hangover. Dino plopped me down by Archie, who was grinding roots into a powder with a stone. "I got to go," said Dino. "Things are a bit hectic right now. Lamachus was killed in the fighting last night." "Oh no," I cried, then took a drink. "We started with 3 generals. Now we're down to 1. So is that it? Did the enemy destroy our wall? Now we can't siege them?" "It's fine," reassured Dino. "Even though Lamachus was killed and the circle attacked, we were able to destroy the counterwall, and the fire chased away the Syracusans from the circle." "Oh, good," I said, and drank again. Dino left, and I looked over to Archie. "Is that the pooping powder?" I asked, starting to feel better. "Sure is, Jerry," replied a busy Archie. "I'm grinding it down to look like regular pepper. The Nike crew won't know the difference. Archie finished his grinding and put the powder in a wineskin. "I've got to go now, Jerry," began Archie. "This is the sack with the pooping powder. I need you to sneak over to the Nike with it and replace their pepper with our special spice." "Sounds easy enough," I said. "Then," continued Archie, "I need you to leave this sack of regular pepper here alone, which we will use to spice up our own supper tonight. Don't mix them up." Archie left. I decided to mark the two skins so that I wouldn't mix them up. I wrote the initials of the poop powder, PP, on the wineskin. Then I wrote down the contraction of pepper, PP, on the other. I drank the rest of the wine. The Nike was sure to have more, so I grabbed the sack marked PP and made my way there. I kept the fancy wine vessel with me to refill. When I got there, the Nike had only one guy milling about, the cook. The rest would be returning soon though, as the sun was going down. I tried to think of a way to get rid of him. I didn't bring a knife, so I couldn't sneak up behind the unsuspecting man and slit his throat. There were no clubs or rocks to beat the guy to death with, so I figured I would use misdirection instead. Hey, this vessel needs refilling." I told the cook I was the standing in a corner guy for Nicias, and the circle was out of wine, and the general needed more. "Oh, poor Nicias," said the man. "He's our only general left." He went off to fill the vessel with some of the Nike's wine. I quickly threw the Nike's pepper into a fire, then replaced it with our pooping powder. The cook returned, and I took another swig of wine. That was the last thing I remember before waking up again, on the beach Melita, needing to use a dirt hole. You see, these days, if you need a toilet, you dig a hole. I had trouble finding a place to do so. Everyone else on our crew was digging their own. When I finally found a spot, I was certain I took the wrong sack of powder. We still have that bet with the Nike, and Archie says the effects of the root lasts for a day or two. Lemachus's death allowed the wall building to continue unmolested. We'll see how well the wall building goes in our condition. 21. Fifth summer entry, second year. The wall building went as badly as expected. Not for Athens and her allies, though. We were able to build our wall to the harbor like we wanted. We built a second wall to enclose our ships and protect them. For the crew of the Melita, it was a disaster. The next morning, after consuming the pooping powder, we found it very difficult to remain on the building site. We filled up the ditch that ran along the wall. We had Humongulus back, only a little worse from wear, and he was working overtime to get ahead of the Nike crew. However, we were undone by one mysterious jerk. Someone, and it could have been anyone, dropped a wine vessel from the wall, and it was not filled with wine. Unfortunately, it fell on poor, sickly Nicias, and he was not happy. "My grandmother's chalice!" The Melita was taken off of wall duty, and we automatically lost the race with the Nike. Now we spend twice as long outside of the safety of the camp collecting firewood. Foraging is when most rowers get ganked. Our crew is dwindling. The Melita left Athens with about 190 crew members. I think we have like 150 now. But there are some promising rumblings. There's a rumor going around that the Syracusans might surrender soon. We're about to start a new wall to complete our encirclement, and cutting off Syracuse from any help. And help is slow in coming. My roommates, however, were not talking to me. They knew I left the bag of poop powder for our cook, and gave the pepper to the Nike crew. They did not dare say anything about our plan outside our circle, though, because the rest of the Melita's crew is out for blood. The Melita was assigned to guard duty just offshore of Syracuse as part of the Athenian blockade. I would tirelessly row up and down the coast during the day. My roommates talked to me only when necessary. Later, We would spend half the night looking for firewood in the unprotected forests. No one would talk to me then either. 22. 6th summer entry, 2nd year. Dear Journal, we had a very eventful day on the blockade. Lots of rowing and crashing. I was pumping away in relative silence as I was still on the outs with the crew. Our job was to stop and check all ships heading towards the city to make sure they were authorized. We didn't want anyone sneaking in to help the Syracusans. The excitement began right after lunch, which we took on the beach. Then we sailed into our position on the blockade. I took out my cloth-wrapped surprise. "Hey guys," I said with much jolliness. "I've got some fresh, tasty fruit. Nothing's better after lunch than a sweet treat. They're hard to come by now and I had to... Dino silently punched me and grabbed my present. The fruit was distributed amongst the guys. "There's one on the horizon," my dad rasped. I couldn't see anything, being on the very bottom. I just rowed where I was told to row. After a few minutes, we stopped the ship and got alongside. I could hear my dad's voice very clearly, but the guy on the other ship was muffled, and I couldn't make out any words. "All right, let's see the orders and seals." Dad's voice vibrated through the planks. "What are you carrying?" The small voice buzzing in reply was inaudible. "Wow," my dad said in surprise. "That's very generous. We are honored the citizens of Athens voted to give us extra wine rations." "Where are those orders I asked for?" "Ah, you noticed. My hair has been coming in thicker since getting away from the city." "Oh yes," said Dad. "I haven't been able to fit in this armor since I was 26. After our first year here, I really slimmed down. I've been exercising more too. Anyway, what were we doing?" "Right, the extra wine," my dad remembered. "Just go straight, directly to our harbor. Don't turn towards the city, not even by accident, because then we'll have to ram you. There have been smugglers trying to get through. Not that I'd accuse our wine bearers of smuggling for our enemy." They shared a laugh, and then the stopped ship went on its way. I heard Dad stomp over to his trierarch seat and sit down. "All this new hair is getting tangled. Bob, bring over that bronze shield you're polishing." "Yeah, just set it in front of me. Do you have a comb?" "All right. Look at that long, full, colorful hair. Ow! I pulled some out. Ow, half my hair's gone now. I'll just take it off the comb and put it back on." "What? No, Bob. I didn't forget to see his papers. I assessed he was of no threat and decided I didn't need to see them. Look for yourself. He's sailing directly towards the harbor, and now he's turning... crap! He's heading towards Syracuse." A mighty panicked roar came from my dad's throat, ordering the Melita to intercept the blockade-running ship. We rowed furiously. "Hades, damn it!" swore Dad. "It's the Nike!" I couldn't see anything from down below. I heard about it afterwards. But as far as I could tell, as we got closer to our enemy vessel, the Nike hoved into view, speeding towards the target ready to ram it. The target pulled some fancy maneuvers, and the Nike was unable to hit it, and found herself alongside the enemy. Exposed. The Nike Marines were trying to board the enemy ship. "Dad!" Bob called Dad's attention. "We are in a really good position to ram the enemy. The Nike should be safe as long as we aim for our target." "Good idea, son," affirmed Dad. We positioned ourselves just right. The order for ramming speed was given. Just as the moment of truth arrived, the enemy ship moved out of our way, and we hit the Nike instead. Luckily, we only hit the tip of the Nike's aft. so it didn't sink, but it was badly damaged. I heard a lot of confusion and yelling up top, people shouting, "What the hell are you doing?" The enemy sailed away. I could hear them mock us as their voices got smaller. There was no one to chase them, and we had to row the Nike back to the harbor. 23. 7th summer entry, 2nd year. Dear Journal, there wasn't a huge amount of fallout from the Nike ramming incident. The Nike was repaired relatively quickly, and since Dad paid for his ship, they can't take it away from him. "That's right," said my dad. "As long as I have a great deal of money, I can get away with anything." They didn't want the Melita on the blockade for a while, so we were back on the walls. We have built walls from the circle to the harbor. Now we had to build a wall from the circle to the shore on the other end to complete our encirclement of the city. However, the Syracusans began another counterwall, so we were in a race again. If the enemy built their counterwall across our path, we would be unable to complete the encirclement, and the siege would be effectively over. If we can't cut off Syracuse, they could hold out all the way to the year 0. Wait, is there going to be a year 0? As we scrambled to build our wall, we noticed soldiers and horsemen coming out of Syracuse. A glint of light grabbed my attention. It came from a small, possibly faraway man with a shiny helmet and scarlet cape. Only a very specific type of soldier wore a red cape. I was looking at an honest-to-the-God Spartan. I had never seen one before. I had never left Athens before. The Herodotus performance we saw last winter in Catana told us all about the Spartans. When they are children, Spartan citizens enter the Agoge, their military academy. It's very intense, and not everybody survives. But if you graduate, you're given a helot and a plot of land that he farms for you. Helots are slaves to the state of Sparta. When the first Spartans arrived in Greece hundreds of years ago, they conquered the neighboring land of Messina. The Spartans enslaved everybody and called them Helots. Every year, Sparta declares war on conquered Messina and unleashes its Agoge students on the Helot population. This is how the young Spartans learn to kill, and the declaration of war keeps it nice and legal for the gods. The Spartans are really quite psychotic. I suppose the ship that Dad allowed through was carrying this Spartan. Seeing how this Spartan was now giving orders, he must have assumed command of Syracuse's defenses. Our side formed up to meet this Spartan. I saw my brother in the ranks as I stood on top the wall. He wore the helmet our grandfather, also named Jerricles, donned in the Samian War. Dad says he was killed trying to storm the gates of Samos while very drunk, when the enemy dropped a rock on his head. I recognized my brother by the distinctive dent on his helmet. Bronze helmets and bronze armor are very expensive, so hoplite gear tends to be handed down the generations. There was a fight. I hid behind a rock on top of the wall. Fortunately, the Spartan general positioned the Syracusan army too close to the walls, and the cavalry were pinned in. The enemy hoplites pulled back and returned to Syracuse, dejected. The general was not living up to his Spartan image. The Syracusans may have gotten a dud Spartan. We continued to build. As the sun neared the horizon, the Syracusans tried again. They formed up, now giving room for their horses. They looked very confident and their formations were smart. Maybe this Spartan general knew what he was doing, after all. My brother and the hoplites met with the Syracusan hoplites, and a shoving match began. Things deteriorated quickly when the Athenian line broke. Our hoplites ran. However, there was now enough room for the Syracusan cavalry to swoop in and start hacking at the retreating soldiers. I thought I was safe on top of the wall, behind my rock, but spears and other rocks from slings peppered my hiding spot. I fell off the wall trying to avoid the missiles. Then I joined the fleeing crowd, heading towards the safety of the circle. I fell down, I looked up, and saw a dented helmet on the dirt. I snatched it up, then searched the chaos for my brother. Enemy cavalry were cutting down straggling hoplites. I saw my hatless brother surrounded by 3 horsemen. Swinging the dented helmet, I attacked without thinking. Fortunately, help came before I got hurt. From behind, Humongulus sprung ahead and punched out 2 horses. Archie swiped away arrows and missiles with a big bronze shield he found. Dino heroically rode in on a horse and deftly swept up my brother and I. He rode us to the safety of the circle. It was all very exciting, and it was the first actual battle I've been involved with. However, as invigorating as that was, our wall was destroyed by the enemy, and their counterwall now blocked our way. It is now impossible to lay an effective siege on Syracuse. So, the adventure is over. 24. 8th summer entry, 2nd year. Dear Journal, after my brother and I were rescued and safe in the circle, my roommates made it clear that I was still on the outs. They said that they helped me only because of ship pride and the possibility of a reward from my dad for saving Bob. Dad was grateful and handed out some styluses with his campaign slogan on it. He has been gearing up for a run at Strategos since buying his ship. You use it with ink to write. I'm illiterate. After losing our battle of the walls, everyone was kind of bummed. We can't cut the city off from help anymore, so this war could go on forever. Many feel that it's already over and we should just go home. Later on, we found out the name of the Spartan general leading the Syracusans was Gylippus, and he seems to be more daring than our Nicias. He managed to capture one of our forts by the harbor while we were distracted and fighting by the wall. After months, I am still forced to sit alone during mealtime. I figured it would be easier for my crew to forgive me if the Nike people released us from our firewood burden. I decided to go talk to the Nike crew. They were still pretty sore about us breaking their ship, even though they were able to fix it. Nonetheless, when I appeared at their biv site, they strung me up to a tree. Why should we give the Melita a break? There must be something I can do. I tried to bribe them with my meager possessions. I don't want an Alcibiades doll. Listen, you bees on the Melita, make filth instead of honey. I hope you die collecting firewood. We could refuse, I suggested. If you do, I'll tell everyone it was your little group of bees that fed the diarrhea dust to the hive, threatened Crapface. It's called poop powder, I said. It was true that the rest of the Melita crew did not know how they got sick. Dino, Archie, Humongulus, and I would be in serious trouble if the real story got out. They told me that I screamed the whole plan at Crapface and his friends as I sped by them during my blackout. One of the Nike crew pulled Crapface aside. They talked and laughed a little, and I spotted a table of unguarded wine jugs. If we could create a fire without wood, said Crapface, we could release you from your forfeit. Fire without wood? Is that a riddle? I asked. No, said Crapface. Hephaestus is said to have made a stone that creates fire on command. My grandmother, close to the gods in her old age, told me that the god of fire keeps his stones in the ear of Dionysus. I agreed to their proposal and promised to find them a firestone. They let me go and laughed. I took a wine jug while they were distracted. The ear of Dionysus was not new to me. I had seen it before while searching for firewood. It was a deep cave, and the opening looked like a human ear hole. This hole was in an unprotected area. I was pretty drunk by the time I reached the ear. I don't know if anybody saw me stumbling in the woods. I was singing and waving a torch around. Then, in the darkness, I heard knives scraping together. I flashed my torch and caught a glimpse of a metallic little owl with many moving parts before it fluttered into the cave, quite noisily. I entered the ear. I saw a pinprick of light in the darkness. The owl was heading towards it. I followed. I heard music. After what felt like an hour, the pinprick turned out to be an automaton orgy. My drunkenness dampened my astonishment, so I accepted this strange situation quite readily. I recognized one of the participants. "Hey, are you the automaton from before?"
I am not an automaton,
he said as he lit a cylinder he had between his teeth with a rock that produced fire. "Hey, can I have that?" I asked.
Yes, it belongs to the Chosen One.
He is the one Hephaestus has chosen to live for 1,000 years,
said the owl.
And we will watch him,
said a weird bronze eye.
He will witness the end of the countdown and solve the mystery of what is going to happen.
What are you talking about? I asked. The automaton gave me a goblet.
Take this and loosen up, man.
Then I woke up on the Melita. Clearly I drank too much and hallucinated an automaton party. There was something bothering my backside. I reached down and discovered the Firestone. Well, at least that was real. Somehow. When I took the magic rock to Crapface, he seemed quite amazed, like he wasn't expecting me to return. A circle formed around him as he made the rock spark. I was able to get Crapface to say we were off the hook before the crowd pushed me off. I gave the crew the good news. They were so happy, they allowed me 30 minutes of conversation time a day. I will be allowed more if I use it wisely. 25. First winter entry, 3rd year. 2 years have passed since we voted to go on this adventure. I'm older now. I began this war when I was 20. Now I'm 22. At first it was going well. It seemed like the Syracusans were always on the edge of surrendering, right up to the point we lost the wall game. Now things are feeling less optimistic. The Spartan general, Gylippus, really whipped the Syracusans into shape. Ever since the Syracusans blocked our wall-building efforts, we have been helpless. All we can do is watch Gylippus march his recruits up and down their counterwall in good order. We are spending the winter in the harbor that Syracuse overlooks. There's not a lot to do during this time, so I find myself sitting at the bay, trying to count how long the harbor is by trireme lengths. I find a ship on the water to use as a reference. Then I break off a twig to match the size of the ship from my perspective. Ooh, burp. From the Pepsi or Diet Coke. I try to count how many lengths of twig the harbor is. I've counted the harbor was a little more than 100 triremes long. With our harbor only 100 triremes long and about half that wide, makes things a bit compact. It would be hard to reach ramming speed in a small crowded place like this. Ah, playing with bits of wood. You haven't changed since I abandoned you as a baby, said Dad from behind, disrupting my calculations. Get up, Jerry. I have a mission for you. This is the first time Dad sought me out personally, so I was very curious what he had to say. I heard that Nicias is looking to appoint a new general to share the burden of command with him. Not only that, he is going to choose from amongst the trierarchs. Wow, I said, not sure what else to say. The thing is, he can't appoint a permanent replacement. Only the assembly in Athens can fully appoint a general. However, Nicias is going to recommend the assembly to vote to make his choice permanent. Do you know what that means, Jerry? It means if Nicias chooses me as a replacement general, I might become a full general. If that happens, I'll be in the game. And if we take Syracuse, I might get elected as one of the 10 strategos. I'll be one of the most powerful people in Athens. No, Greece. I could do anything. Even adopt you, Jerry. Really? Yes, Jerry, Dad continued. I need you to help me make a good impression with Nicias. I need you to get our ship back into working shape and looking like the smartest ship in the fleet. Replace the rotten boards, repaint the whole thing, and find replacement rowers from wherever you can get them. Well, that's a lot. Is Bob going to help me? I asked. No, replied Dad. Bob is the golden son. I need to prepare my brave, combat-experienced boy to show off to Nicias. I want him to see how well I breed. Right, I said. So if I get the ship ready and you're made a general, you'll adopt me? Or rather acknowledge me? No, when I'm elected strategos, I'll bring you into my household, said Dad. Imagine, Jerry, you can move out of that tiny prison cell of an apartment and into a big open-air house with servants to tend to all your needs. You can bring your foster mom. I'll set you up in the furthest wing so we don't have to run into each other. All you have to do is make my ship the best in the fleet. What do you say? Don't worry, Dad, I replied with eagerness. I am sufficiently motivated to carry out your orders to the fullest. I will bend my own morality to complete this mission. Here's some money, Dad said, giving me a purse. This will help you get supplies and assistance. I found my rowmates and asked for their help. When I showed them the purse, they agreed. Archie was able to use his smooth talking to get us passage on a trireme going up to Catana. We went into some drinking dens and flashed our money at some prospective rowers. We found 20 rowdy and eager drunk people and promised them cash to row with us for just a little while. Then I saw Crapface and the other rowers of the Nike skulking around Catana. They had the same mission we did. They got most of the big guys before we could. Crapface brought more gold with him too. They were able just to hire people and not even trick them like we had to do. We gathered all our guys by the harbor. Humongulus kept pouring the drinks, while Dino stealthily shackled everyone's feet together into a chain gang. Then we got them in a boat that we bought and rowed them back to Syracuse. The unfortunate and hungover men began sobering up in the morning. Soon the reality of their situation sunk in. A couple of them cried. These men will have had no training. Numbers, though, are enough to move a ship. This was a situation where you worked with what you got. Anyway, the fun part came next. We cut some switches and beat our prisoners into submission. Then we made them cut down the trees to make fresh planks. We hit our captives as they replaced the rotten wood. A smaller guy began to sob about his newborn not having a provider. He was beaten by all of us as we laughed uproariously. You have to laugh where you can. It lightens the mood and dehumanizes your prisoners, making it easier to brutalize them. Painting the Melita was a more difficult task, mainly because we had to make the paint ourselves. There aren't a ton of colors available for painting. Lead white paint is the most common. It's easy to make and dries fast. Purple, though, is right out. Only the richest Athenians have purple robes. Oh no. Are you interested in the particulars of how paint and textiles and how a ship is run? Hey? Is this your favorite part of a story? Alright, so as I said, purple's right out, kitty cat. Only the richest Athenians have purple robes. I think the color comes up from smashed up beetles, and it's hard to get enough to dye even a small square inch of cloth. A considerable amount of materials were needed for our renovations. It was hard, grueling work, but we whipped our guys until the ship was glowing with color. Brilliant yellow beside dark black stripes. Our bronze needle was polished until the sun's reflection was blinding. On the evening of the dinner, with Nicias and the Triarchs, we made an impressive display as we rowed our ship up to the dinner tent. Dad hopped onto the dock and Bob followed. The rest of us were going to have our normal rations on the ship as the commanders feasted. Nicias greeted my dad. "You repainted your ship," he said. "It's very colorful, and I like the contrast between the black and the yellow. I am quite impressed." "Oh, that means so much," my dad began. However, Nicias came over with a look of astonishment. "I don't believe it," gaped Nicias. "How could anyone afford it?" Dad was confused. He looked around, then gaped in astonishment himself. The Nike was rolling in, but it had more than a new paint job. "That entire sail is purple," Nicias said. "Simon is a very rich man, and the triarch of the Nike, so he must have blown a lot of talents to dye a piece of material 20 feet tall." Simon arrogantly strode off his ship and towards Nicias and my dad. I was up top. We didn't need to stay down below during the dinner. Soon, the rest of the triarchs arrived, and the dinner began. The Melita and the Nike were on either side of a jetty. We were separated by only a few feet. From where I could see, the Nike crew was given extra food, probably from their rich captain, Simon. As I tried to savor my cheese clump, I was hit by a messy projectile. I was angry to find yogurt on my face, thrown by someone from the Nike. "Hey!" Dino screamed. "Stop throwing food like children!" He got hit by a cooked goose and fell into the water. The Nike was eating well. Dino raged in the water and crap-faced yelled out, "Food fight!" I hesitated to throw my cheese. However, the food the Nike was throwing over was much better than what I had, so I chucked the cheese and started picking up all the little tasty morsels I could find on the deck. Dad yelled out and everyone stopped dead. He ignored the scene and boarded the Melita in angry silence. I had to wait until we beached the Melita before Dad told the story. "What happened?" I asked. "Were you made a general?" "Bah!" said Dad, and didn't respond with much else. So Bob stepped in. "Nicias read us a letter after the meal," Bob said. "It's a letter he intends to send to the Athenian assembly." "Oh, good," I said. "He put his recommendation in for the new general, right?" The letter began by informing the assembly of our current situation," continued Bob. "He wrote about the arrival of the Spartan general Gylippus, and the defeat we suffered with the counterwall, and how we can no longer contain Syracuse. He also mentioned the enemy reinforcements, ships from Syracuse's sister city of Corinth, and hoplites from Boeotia. Nicias then explained that our triremes are rotting and the crews are deteriorating with them." "Tell me about it," I interrupted. 20 was the most rowers we could get. He also asked for reinforcements, the same amount we left with. "That's tens of thousands of people," I said. "Nicias thinks we should leave if we can't get the reinforcements." I feel like Nicias has said something like this before, I thought out loud. But was Dad made a general? Am I getting readopted? "No," Dad answered. "Nicias is going to let the assembly decide. If Athens chooses to give us reinforcements, they will send generals from home. And Nicias is asking to retire because of his kidney disease." It seemed like now this expedition was actually over, unless Athens approved 10,000 more reinforcements. I returned to my rowmates and 20 prisoners. They were all buzzing about the fun they had that night with the food fight. Most were laughing. Even that crying guy forgot about his baby. I'm tired now, so I'll stop writing. 26. Second winter entry, third year. Dear Journal, it's been very routine here. We've been rowing up and down the harbor, getting our prisoners into shape. Ships are randomly showing up here from Athens with messages. I got a letter from home with one of these ships. I read the letter out to my rowmates and the prisoners. They were interested in hearing about recent developments in such a faraway city.
Dear Jerry, disaster! Absolute disaster! Things were going good after I got your last letter. I was living off the money from renting out our slave. Alcibiades' meddling in Sparta put an end to the good times. According to the rumors, after Alcibiades was arrested, he escaped. The traitor made his way to Sparta and defected. Apparently, there was a big speech where Alcibiades claimed that he was the one who was betrayed, being wrongfully convicted of a crime he did not commit. Bah! He then convinced the Spartans to send help to Syracuse and to invade Attica. I suppose the peace is over now. It's bad enough that the Spartans are back ravaging our crops. Now they have a base where they can send out troops all year round, preventing the farmers from growing the crops. And food prices are through the roof. Love, Mom and Hercules.
This news was a bit shocking for all of us. To learn that the Spartans were invading our home again? Humongulus had a grandmother, Demetra, in Athens, who raised him. She would be older than my foster mom, and more frail. It was Demetra who encouraged Humongulus's love of theater, as well as his love of lifting things. "She needs a lot of help to shop for food," said Humongulus. "I need to get back there to help her." "My brothers are hotheads," said Dino. "I had to stop them from lying about their age to go on this expedition. They'll get themselves killed trying to fight Spartans if I'm not there." "I thought you said your brothers were killed by the Spartans," I said. I meant they killed all my sisters," Dino said, thinking. "Yeah, that's right. All my sisters were killed, and now I only have brothers." "Right. Let's not worry," I said, trying to comfort everybody. Humongulus pointed towards the harbor, where we saw 74 new, glistening triremes, ready and eager to fight, crossing over to the Athenian side. So Athens did send us reinforcements, same amount we left with the first time. Athens was doubling down on its bet. Anyways, I have to stop writing now because there's going to be a big battle tomorrow. I remember the day Demosthenes arrived in Syracuse. His ship landed first. We watched the new general from the beach. He smoothly clumped his way down the gangplank and onto shore with great speed and control. He did this without breaking pace and led Nicias into a tent for privacy. Demosthenes was our replacement general for Lamachus and Alcibiades. He's a fairly experienced leader. He's seen a few victories and defeats, and has been punished by the assembly for the defeats. Dad and Bob returned from a meeting with Demosthenes. Dad was humming and skipping. Bob, as always, was unaffected by anything. "Listen up, crew. Demosthenes, our new general, has decided to finally attack Syracuse," Dad said. "I will begin with the situation," said Bob. "As you know, Demosthenes has arrived earlier today, and he has made an assessment of our current status. He believes that although the enemy has been reinforced by Boeotian hoplites and Corinthian ships, and that they are led by a Spartan general, the Syracusans are actually now at their most vulnerable. Demosthenes said that the arrival of our reinforcements is a huge blow to the Syracusans' morale. Now is the time to strike because the enemy's spirits are at their lowest." Demosthenes noted that the Syracusan counterwall was only a single wall and not very sturdy. "Our mission will be to attack the camps guarding the counterwall, drive off the defenders, and break down the defenses. After that, We will start building our own wall again to complete our encirclement of Syracuse. When we have surrounded the city, the defenders will be as good as done. Finally, I thought, I'll get some war booty and go home. Maybe I'll buy my own trireme. But I don't want to be the captain, I just want to row. We will execute this mission tomorrow night during the full moon, said Bob, his flat delivery hiding the significance of a night attack. The whole crew murmured with concern. These offenses almost never work, but the advantage is surprise. This is their stronghold on Epipoli, the end of their counterwall, spanning across the heights from the city to the stronghold. Our army of 10,000 hoplites will march up the hill, with one phalanx division following the other. We will overrun the strongholds, then continue down the wall towards the city. There are enemy camps here, here, and here. They will be overrun, one by one. Are we doing anything, the rowers? I asked. Yes, answered Dad. The crew of the Melita will be alongside the hoplites, breaking down the wall as they chase away the defenders. Bob continued. We will have special signals to identify allies in the dark. When you meet a stranger, you will ask, Karikos Provasis. If they answer, Enna, they are friendly. Demosthenes will be leading the attack. I will be commanding one of the phalanxes, so I won't be with you, the rowers. Babakis is moving up in the world, added Dad. Winning this battle means everything. Demosthenes says either we take the counterwall tonight or we sail home tomorrow. This is my big chance to become a strategos. And you rowers' only chance at war booty. Who'll be in charge of the rowers and break down the wall, I asked. I can do it, chimed in Dino. I am the most senior rower now. I have earned a chance at leadership. You decide, Bob, Dad said. You should be in charge, Jerry, said Bob. You had done well fixing up the ship, and you may have an important position in our family, the Pussy Williads, in the future someday. Nepo baby, Dino muttered. No, I protested. I have proven. You're a Nepo baby, Jerry, Dad yelled. You're only here because your biological mother felt guilty. And if you do a good job tomorrow night, I may still adopt you. Well, I suppose nepotism isn't so bad when it's in your favor. Briefing's done, said Dad. I'll be back at the fort with Nicias. You don't need us. We're old, and young people are better at fighting our battles than we are. We spent the next day preparing for the fight. The prisoners we enslaved earlier had to stay. They might run off into the night, so it was easier to keep them shackled to the ship. At night, we formed up at the foot of the plateau, which the counterwall was built on. I could see the stronghold silhouette against the glowing white moon, our only light. I could not see Bob anywhere. It was really dark. I kept stumbling on rocks and roots. Crapface and the Nike crew pulled up beside us. I think some of them had swords. Crapface had an expensive-looking breastplate. The Melita crew had no armor. Crapface scoffed. Your rabble is going to hinder us more than help us. I bet we could tear down more wall than you, I said. It's a bet, said Crapface. Demosthenes gave the order for the hoplites to advance. The mass of men marched up the hill and looked like a dark, undulating sea. Soon word came down that the first stronghold was easily overrun. Us rowers ran over to the enemy's wall and started breaking things. It went well. There were some enemy skirmishers who tried to slow us down with arrows and javelins. Dino defended us with a discarded javelin, keeping anyone from getting close to our wall breaking. Archie was bashing away at the wall with a heavy mallet, while Humongulus was making good progress using only his meaty fists. I was leading from the top of the counterwall. Orders flew out of my mouth as I waved my weaponized paddle in the moonlight. It was very loud, so I don't think anyone heard me, but I was having the time of my life. After a couple of rocks and javelins nearly missed me, I realized I was an obvious target, and I decided to hop down. I never seen Crapface so angry. He screamed at his men because he realized the Melita was so far ahead of the Nike. Everything was going to plan until our hoplites reached the end of the wall and met the Theban contingent from Boeotia. These guys aren't amateurs like the Sicilians. Theban/Boeotian hoplites are second only to Spartans. The Athenians were unable to simply brush away the Boeotians. In fact, the first phalanx line into the alcove broke and retreated. But at the same time, more and more Athenian hoplites entered the alcove. All I could see was dark waves of men marching around in confusion, unsure where the enemy was, while fighting other retreating Athenians, thinking they were the enemy. The Thebans pushed the whole mess out of the alcove. It was like a dam broke. Without warning, my crew was swept away by a torrent of fleeing hoplites. I was stunned. I realized our guys were in full retreat. Another horrible rout! "Snap out of it, you Nepo baby," cried Dino as he bashed me in the head with a rock. "We have to get back to our base." We hopped off the counterwall and ran away from the chaos. We found ourselves in an open field atop the plateau. There was a solitary tree where two men were struggling to the death at its roots. It was too dark to tell which one of the shadows was friendly. Dino pointed his javelin and challenged, "Kodikos provasis." Both heads turned up in surprise. There was a brief pause, then both answered, "Ina, Ina, Ina." "Darn it!" shouted Dino. "Who's the Athenian?" "I am," answered one of the shadows. "I'm a rower for the Nike." I recognized the voice. "Is that you, Crapface?" The other guy saw Crapface and I knew each other. He gave up the fight and ran away. "Come with us, Crapface," said Dino. Our trio stopped when we reached the cliffs of the plateau. We saw a group of men who were running directly towards us. Our backs were to the edge. "Get behind me," said Crapface. "I am the most protected with my breastplate." A javelin struck his plate, and the force caused all three of us to tumble down the cliff to the rocks below. It was a bit of a fall, but survivable. We knew enough to play dead. The enemy threw down a couple more javelins, then lost interest, and went off to find someone else to bother. "I'm okay," whispered Dino as he picked himself up. "How's everyone else?" "I think my collarbone is broken," answered Crapface. "And my leg. And my arms." "Then we're stuck," said Dino. "We'll have to hold out here until the truce is called to bury the dead." "You can still run," protested Crapface. "Leave me and get to safety." "We're safe enough here," said Dino. "Ugh, I owe you," said Crapface, breathing heavily. "Your breastplate saved our lives," said Dino. "You saved my life in the field," said Crapface. "Here, I never owe anyone anything. Take this and we are even." And Dino took the fire rock from him. "Thanks," said Dino. I was glad that in the end, we didn't have to stab him for it. We stayed on the beach all night, and we quietly waited. I thought about my brother and wondered what had happened to him. The sun rose after a sleepless night. Then we saw a trireme with a stinger for a nose. It was the Melita. Dino and I waved at it, using as much of our bodies as possible to get noticed. Soon the three of us boarded the ship. Dad was frantically scanning the shoreline. "You're alive, Jerry?" Dad asked, shaking. "Good. Get down below and start rowing. Bob never made it back to base. Many of the soldiers jumped down the cliffs in desperation. We have triremes all over the place picking people up. Hurry up, we gotta find Bob!" Dino and I laid a sleeping Crapface beside a couple of other wounded men. Then we went down below to find Archie and Humongulus at their stations. I sat by my paddle and felt at home again. "Over there, I see something!" Dad screamed from above. We began rowing. I asked my guys how they got back. We were all separated by the rush of people, said Archie. Everyone ran down the plateau. All of us here knew the terrain, so we made it back easily. Humongulus and I met back up at the base. What about our general, Demosthenes? I asked. The whole thing was his idea. He lived, replied Archie, and still in command. Wait, where are the prisoners? They escaped, said Archie. Stop! Stop! A crazed Dad yelled. It's him! The trireme stopped, and I heard Dad thump off the ship. I was probably meant to stay at my station, but I rushed up to find a mangled Bob. Dad was screaming, My boy! My boy! Bob was moving a bit, so he was alive. He looked like a bloody, jagged blob. Parts of his hoplite cloak fluttered in the wind. I moved closer to Bob. His face was dusty and his lips were chapped and bloody. Phalanx ahead of us retreated, Bob weakly spoke. Carried away by the people. Don't speak, Dad said as gently as possible for him. You can tell us everything later. Where's that stretcher? I tried to rally. I tried. Bob continued anyway. No one heard. How'd I get here? Where's my arm? Bob's cloak covered the goriest part, but when he tried to move his arm, it was obviously shorter. I'm pretty sure I vomited. Bob didn't bleed out because there was cloth tying up his wound. He must have done that himself during his memory blackout. The sun was at its highest point when the Melita finally returned to the harbor. And now, the sun is getting low as I write everything down while it's still fresh. 28. Second summer entry, third year. Dear Journal, there was a big meeting to discuss what to do next. Nicias and Demosthenes stood up a hill. We were in our defense enclosure. Everyone did what they were supposed to do, began Demosthenes. The night raid was an ambitious plan. I take full responsibility. Now that we have tried our best, it's time to go back home and remove the Spartans from our land. No, said Nicias. You are not throwing away our advantage because of one defeat. What advantage? Interrupted Demosthenes. We have no food, our ships are rotten, and we can't even man all of them. We must leave before we starve, or the Syracusans trap us in their harbor. We have hoplites, said Nicias, and I have been getting messages from my informants in the city that Syracusans' fortunes will soon turn. Many of my spies implore us to stay longer, because there is a faction within the city that wants to betray Syracuse to us. The crowd murmured, and everyone talked amongst themselves. What's going on, Nicias? Demosthenes discreetly asked. You were trying to convince the assembly to end the expedition in your letter. Yes, quietly replied Nicias, trying not to be heard by the men. But I heard both of them. I was sitting pretty close. But you know how these people are like. If we just leave without trying everything, the men will just blame us for being spineless when we return to Athens. I know they're all psychos, whispered Demosthenes. But if we stay here, we will surely die. For now, shouted Nicias, we will stay. Our position is too favorable to abandon it. There was more discussion. The Salamis showed up with routine official business and news. I was walking back to the Melita when my dad pulled me into a tent. Bob was resting on a stretcher Dad must have put him on. Bob's ready to go, Dad said, pushing me to the other end of the stretcher. We're taking him to the Salamis. Some of the wealthier fathers have secured a place for their wounded boys. Don't bring any unneeded attention to us. Some people might rightly get jealous. Bob was out, but breathing comfortably. Dad and I took the long way round so we would be seen less. After a while, Dad just started talking. Did I ever tell you? Your grandfather rowed at Salamis. The ship we're going to is named after the battle. It was an even greater victory against the Persians than Thermopylae. No, I didn't know that, I said. His name was Jerricles, Dad continued. It's customary to name kids after their grandfathers. Dad had been avoiding me all my life. I was never told anything about my family. It's quite the revelation for me to learn my grandfather was a rower just like me, and had my name. After the Persians were expelled from Greece, Dad continued, your grandfather's generation went out into the Aegean Sea and forced all the islands to pay for protection from the Persians, whether they wanted to or not. Your grandfather helped to create the largest empire/protection racket Greece had ever known. Money poured into Athens and the economy boomed. With the money he made from rowing, my father gave me a small loan for my first ship, a modest ferry. The family business, Jerry, if I never told you, is transportation. Dad helped to row, and I was the business guy. When I was about yours and Bob's age, I had earned my first talent with the shipping empire I built. It was the time of Pericles the Olympian. He led the empire Dad's generation left us, and we were ready to start our golden age. We rebuilt the Acropolis, even grander than before. There was work, even for the poorest Athenian citizen. No one went hungry. Wars were a summer vacation, blowing Persian ships out of the water with our triremes. It was the happiest time of my life. Yes, before the war with Sparta, we had it all. We thought we could easily stop them with our long walls. This was supposed to be my generation's great war, where we would conquer/bring freedom to Greece. We reached the Salamis and loaded Bob onto the ship. There were a few other lucky rich kids lying in stretchers. Dad bent down, saying goodbye to Bob. Dad and I stepped off the ship, then watched it sail into the orange sunset. Then he continued to speak. We used everything up fighting this war. We exhausted the empire your grandfather helped to build and sacrificed my son's left arm and his future. I wouldn't worry, I said. Bob is going to be alive now, and the war is the best thing that ever happened to me. I achieved my lifelong dream of being a trireme rower. I have a group of friends now, for the first time ever. And now, because of the war, there's a future for me. Without it, I wouldn't be able to make the same money or live the same life I wanted without it. Dad didn't say anything. He just gave me a look of horror that could only be described as a man seeing his ultimate fears coming true. Not only that, I continued, I have been able to reconnect with my family. Oh, right, said Dad. You know, Bob will never become a strategos. Athens is a vicious place. The ancient world is a vicious place. They would never allow an amputee to run for office. He's still rich, I said. He can buy a politician to use as a proxy. Yeah, said Dad, a little comforted. I'll have at least left him with a huge advantage over 98% of the population. The Melita and the rest of the fleet will soon be following Bob. We should be withdrawing from Sicily soon. Third summer entry, third year. Dear Journal, enemy reinforcements have been streaming into the harbor every day. We were delayed for days because half of us were sick with some Sicilian disease. I was all yellow and felt miserable. We regretted not leaving earlier, and, despite our illness, the fleet prepared to leave in secret during a full moon. This might have been our last chance to escape Syracuse before they got wise and blockaded the exit. Unfortunately, right before we left that night, there was a lunar eclipse. The superstitious Nicias took the advice of a soothsayer who suggested waiting another 4 weeks. Everyone was so sick, no one fought the postponement. A few days later, the enemy chained together a series of ships and blocked the harbor's exit. So there's a floating wall which now blocks our way to freedom. There's a chance I may not get out of here. 30. Fourth summer entry, third year. Dear Journal, Nicias called everyone together and gave us the plan. "We will be fighting a land battle on sea," began Nicias. "The number of enemy ships combined with the triremes we can man, there will be 200 ships fighting in that small space. There will be almost no room to maneuver. Our only way out is beyond the wooden barrier. We are going to ram the barrier with our triremes until it breaks. A few ships will do this while the rest of the fleet protects them. Because it will be so tight in the harbor, more hoplites, archers, and javelin throwers can be placed on board the triremes. I will lead the fleet in the harbor. Demosthenes will protect our base with a detachment of hoplites. Prepare your ships and yourselves tonight. The attack begins tomorrow." We spent the rest of the day fixing up the ship and getting our weapons gathered together. The Melita felt very empty now, especially after our prisoners escaped. I miss those guys. There are only 50 or so of us now. "I was talking to my dad," I said, "and he told me he started his business with a small ship he bought. I think we could do the same." "You mean start a ferry business?" asked Dino. "Or transporting cargo," I said. "We don't have war booty, but we do have our wages, which should be enough for a down payment on a ship, and we would save money by rowing it ourselves." "A little shipping company," said Archie. "I love it. In wartime, they need lots of ships to transport weapons and food. We'll expand in no time." "I really need the job," said Humongulus. "I won't be bringing much back home." "All my brothers can help row too," said Dino. "Best of all," I said, "I'm a Nepo baby, so my dad will bail us out if we get in financial trouble." Dad then appeared, looking like he wanted to say something. He pulled me alongside. "I'm not going to fool around anymore, Jerry," said Dad. "When the battle is over and we get home, I will adopt you." That's all he said, and he went back to his Triarch duties. My life is falling into place. All I have to do is survive tomorrow. 31. 5th summer entry, 3rd year. Dear Journal, I slept very little. I ate as much as I could. I needed the energy for rowing, even if my stomach was too scared to accept food. We launched the Melita into the harbor for the last time. I followed all the rowing commands. It took us some time to maneuver our beloved trireme because half the crew was shoved in from other ships. There wasn't enough rowers for every trireme. We manned as many as we could. I was down below and could not see anything like always. Nicias gave a speech. "Even though our situation is grim," said Nicias, not beginning with a joke, "don't let that discourage you. Not now, when courage is exactly what you need to survive. Remember, we are Athenians and possess the greatest navy in the world." The speeches ended and the horns blew. The battle had begun. The Melita didn't do much at first. I heard wood crashing against wood. Judging by the groans of the crowd, we weren't having any luck with the barrier. There was fighting somewhere. Thousands of men were shouting. "Look, a clear path!" shouted Dad from above. "Ram that ship before the gap closes!" Our ship's drums thumped as we performed our maneuvers, pointing the needle-nosed prow of the ship towards the enemy. Then we rowed our hearts out. Dino, Archie, Humongulus, and I were in perfect sync as usual. The Melita reached maximum speed. I think we were going faster than we ever had before. My hands left the oar as my body violently rose to the roof of the trireme. Then I bounced off the top and slammed into the ship that rammed into us. My eyes met the eyes of a familiar winged lady, the goddess Nike, that protrude from our rival's ship. It was the Nike that hit us. I fell through the Melita's cracked hull and into the water. I was under the ship. I didn't see what happened to my other rowmates. I tried to swim to the surface, but my leg was caught on a rope, and I discovered I couldn't move my legs. My left one was bleeding bad. At the time, I thought I was going to die, but I wouldn't be writing this if I did. My own personal Jerricles rescued me. Dino swiftly cut the rope holding my leg with his knife. I was then escorted to the surface, where I gratefully gasped for air. We hung off of a log. Dino was on top of me. This was so he could propel us with his legs. Mine were still unserviceable. For a moment, I thought a rain cloud had burst, but the raindrops were actually arrows and javelins. We weathered the storm though, nothing hit us. I was feeling like everything was going to be fine, probably because of my massive blood loss. I passed out for a little bit. When I woke up, I was on the beach. The sun hadn't moved much, and I discovered my bloody leg was patched up. "Good, you're alive," I heard an out-of-breath Dino say. "You were the only one I could save." He had half a mustache ripped off his face and was slumped over the log we swam to safety on. He looked like a grotesque porcupine with many arrows and javelins stuck in his back. Turns out he had protected me from that hail of missiles. "Do you know what happened?" I asked. "The Nike hit us and sunk us," Dino began. "Our paths must have crossed in that small harbor. Clearly an accident." "What happened to Archie and Humongulus?" I asked. "The Nike directly hit Humongulus's station and..." Dino broke off. It must have been gruesome. "Archie was crushed by the debris. I couldn't save him, but I found you." What about my dad?" "No." "Anyone else survived?" I asked. "Just you," he said. And you, Dino." "Dino?" Crap. Only a few hundred words earlier, I was living in a golden future. Now, everyone I know is dead. The beach was full of washed-up men and wood. Did not look like we won. Ships and wounded fighters streamed back onto the beach. My legs had a little movement now, so I crawled. The sun was steadily falling behind the horizon. "What the heck are you doing, Jerry?" a familiar voice complained. "Oh, I'm just crawling around the beach until the shock wears off and I go insane." "What are you doing, Dad? I was told you're dead." "Unfortunately," said Dad, "I am only a figment of your imagination. However, this means as long as you remember me, I will never be truly dead. So, don't forget me or I'll die." "I won't, Dad." "I'm not fooling around, Jerry," said Dad's voice. "This is life and death. Remember me, damn it!" "I will." "Oh, yeah, this also means I'm not adopting you anymore," the voice said apologetically. "Not that I don't want to. I'm just a memory now and have no legal standing." "I understand," I said. 32. 6th summer entry, 3rd year. Dear Journal, the thing is, the ancient world is so full of dangers that you're not really allowed much time to be sad before something else comes up, like planning our escape. After the battle, we gathered again to talk. Demosthenes was there and Nicias survived the fight. The generals tried to persuade us to man the ships and try again. The discussion got very heated and a petty officer almost lunged at Nicias. If either of the generals had the ability to motivate us, we may have actually gone back to the harbor. Instead, they gave in and did not order us to return. It was decided to begin a retreat to Catana, the city Alcibiades used his wits to capture all those years ago. It was nighttime. However, we got the news that the Syracusans were setting up roadblocks. Nicias decided to wait. He gave us a day to pack our essentials. I had nothing to pack or leave behind. A petty officer saw me doing nothing and tasked me with helping the very seriously wounded. They were all splayed out on the field of the enclosure. I discovered Crapface among the rows. He was lying on bloody grass with nothing on but underwear and sweat. He looked pretty rough. I gave him some water. Then he spoke. "You got in our way," he said weakly. "We were ramming a ship and you got in the way." "Yeah, we were trying to ram a ship too," I said. He grabbed my shirt. "Everyone is dead. Ship sunk." "Same with the Melita," I said. "I'm the sole survivor, just like you." "Oh," said Crapface. He let go of my shirt. I stayed with him throughout the night. I had no one else to be with. I'm writing this as Crapface sleeps. 33. 7th summer entry, 3rd year. I hope this isn't my last entry. Nicias and Demosthenes gave us the final mission briefing on the beach. "This is our last chance," began Nicias. "There are 12,000 of us left. The barrier in the harbor has proven impassable. We can't get off the island, so we must find friendly territory. We're going to Katana. The enemy has set up patrols and fortifications throughout the area. Katana is a few days' march north," continued Nicias. "We will split our army into 2 divisions, one following the other. I will command the forward division, and Demosthenes will command the rear. The Syracusans are all over the forests and canyons hunting us. If we stay together in formation, we will be safe. Food and water is limited. It will be impossible to bring any wounded who cannot walk." There was murmuring, however no one really objected. When I revealed the bad news to Crapface, he took it well. "I'll only slow you down and put the whole army in danger," he said. "I only hope my sacrifice will help our great polis. Keep that sparking rock safe," he continued. "I want the warmth to remind you of me." "Thanks, Crapface," I said. The feeling was tense as we marched our tight square formation down the road. We never knew what was behind the trees or bushes as we passed them. I was in the center, fairly safe from immediate danger. We came up to a river blocked by a phalanx of Syracusan hoplites. Our soldiers broke away from the square and formed up to meet the enemy. The Syracusans were still no Boeotians, and they were easily swept aside. As we crossed the river, I filled my sheepskin canteen I was able to trade for. I had a hard time refilling it and was dying of thirst for the whole march. That night, Nicias and Demosthenes squares met up on a hill where it would be easy to see oncoming enemies. There we rested for the night, and I ran out of water from sharing with my marchmates. We had nothing to eat that night. In the morning, the 2 divisions turned north and marched down the hill to a little village where we gathered whatever food and water we could find. We left the village, which was at the bottom of a ravine. 2 great slopes were at either side of us as we marched through a canyon. Our square entered a bushy part of the ravine. That's when the first of many barrages began. I was inside the square, and I had a wooden shield so I could deflect most of the arrows shot at me. We had no choice but to march through the projectiles. When the ravine allowed, the Syracusan cavalry would descend upon us. As long as the square held, the horses were too afraid to go near the protruding spears. Sometimes it broke, and the enemy was able to cut down a few of us in the center. The hoplites would reform and chase them away after a while. The sun set, and the Syracusans got tired. They went off to rest for the night. The 2 divisions met up and camped in the ravine. Nicias addressed us, saying there was a river a day's march away from our current position, which was good, because my mouth was as dry as my elbows now. Another day beyond that was Katana and safety. Currently, the Syracusans have us surrounded, he said. We will attempt to trick the enemy by lighting our campfires and secretly withdrawing in the night. I easily started a fire with my special rock. The 2 metal bits rubbed together and easily created a spark. When I was drunk and out of it in the ear of Dionysus, I could swear it produced a flame, not just a spark. Well, whatever. I was wasted then. When the rest of the fires were set, we ran into the darkness. Every shadow was a possible Syracusan. I was terrified. But it seemed to work, because nobody attacked us. When the sun came up, we reached some trees, near the river we were headed to. I was hungry, but the thirst was more painful. It was midsummer in the Mediterranean. I think I ran out of sweat, and my eyes had gone dry. Water was only a few trees away. When I pushed aside the last bush, I saw the river, surrounded by hundreds of Syracusans. Our army tried to go back the other way, but more Syracusans blocked the road. We were trapped and forced to sit in a terrible purgatory. I sucked on as many dewy leaves as I could find, but it still wasn't enough. Then, to my delight, I found a big leaf with lots of water nestled in it. A metallic man with a blood-red cloak emerged from the bush and flung my leaf out of his way. "I will not hurt you," said the man, as his authoritative helmet caught the sun. "My name is Gylippus. I wish to speak with Nicias." This was the first time I looked into the cold brown eyes of a Spartan equal. His powerful and confident aura lived up to expectations. Here's the conversation between Nicias and Gylippus. "That must not be true." "Send a messenger if you doubt me. He will be protected by the truce. We promised Demosthenes that none of his men would be killed if they laid down their weapons and surrendered. I offer you the same terms." "Well, maybe we'll take our chances. Surrender or die." The messenger returned and confirmed that Demosthenes had indeed surrendered, and his division taken prisoner, all 6,000. Nicias still refused to surrender. Gylippus returned to the Syracusan side, and we were pelted with all the usual things for the rest of the day. I had now forgotten the taste of water. The enemy broke off for the night, and we decided to try the same campfire trick as the night before. There was a river to the southwest, which was protected by native Sicilians who hated Syracusans. That's where we decided to try for. The campfires were lit, and we set out into the darkness. My body was worn out and moving itself. The only thought in my head was water. The trick failed, and the Syracusans pelted us in the night. You could only run and hope the gods were on your side. We reached the Southwest River, and this is where the climax of the last 3 years happened. Order broke, and a massive chaos, spurred on by thirst, descended upon the river. Syracusans emerged from the forest and blocked the river. Great columns of fire burst into the sky as giant bonfires were lit all over the area. The thirsty and unarmed Athenians threw themselves on the spears of the enemy. Many of them were pushed forward by the momentum behind them. There was all the horrible screaming you expected. However, there was laughter too. The enemy was amused as they slaughtered us. Many Athenians were indifferent to the enemy blades as they drank the water. The killing never slowed, even as I collapsed in the water. It was more blood than water, but I drank it. A dead body fell on me, then another. I was crushed, and I could not breathe. Now, the lack of water, food, and sleep made me delirious, so I'm sure what happened next probably had a perfectly rational explanation. Under the bodies, in the darkness, I took out my fire rock, and a flame illuminated writhing flesh. That's when a pair of spindly arms found me and plucked my body from the mound of bodies. I was set down by a metallic man, the same man I met in the ear of Dionysus.
"Don't get yourself killed, man,"
he said.
"We need you to live for a long time.
"There's one, fellas!"
Better run, dude. Watch this."
I woke up in a chain gang. I heard from my fellow chain gang mates that last night Nicias surrendered to Gylippus. Nicias was quickly taken back to Syracuse. This meant that the entire Sicilian expedition had been killed or captured. In my head, the end of this involved me, my friends, and family living happily ever after off my war booty. This chain gang was an unexpected turn. We were marched back to the city. That's when I saw 2 naked bodies lying on the road near the gate. One of the bodies was Nicias. Demosthenes was the body beneath him. The Syracusans had simply executed the 2 generals and thrown their bodies outside the city. We were shuttled through the gate, and the noise of jeering Syracusans hurt my ears. The people threw crap and rocks at us, letting out 3 years of frustration. I had a realization. If someone had come to Athens with the intent of stealing all our stuff, we would all be angry at them too. Maybe we didn't think this through. Maybe we shouldn't have antagonized the largest Greek city after Athens, who could have been a powerful ally in the West. All told, only about 7,000 of us survived. We were deposited in the stone quarries beneath the city. I have nothing else left to write on, so this is probably my last entry. 32. Summertime. The real plan was to have us all slowly die. It felt like I was in my spot for 1,000 years. One day, there were 2 Syracusan guards making a prisoner give out the daily rations. "This is more than any of you deserve," one guard said. "Yeah," said the other. "A handful of food was more than my old man got during your blockade. He died because of you." "Crapface!" I exclaimed. "Oh no," he replied. "You again. Why do you keep calling me that? What does it mean?" I don't care. The last time I saw you, you abandoned me on the ground when I begged you to take me." "Did you?" I asked as I strained to remember. "Yeah, and you took that rock that starts fires." "Did I?" "Yeah, you said, 'The warmth of the flame will remind me of you.' Then you left me. I was taken prisoner a day later." "Oh, okay, I guess that's what happened. I must have misremembered." "Keep moving," said a guard. And that was the last time I saw Crapface. I spent my days in the quarry with my roommates. They were only in my head, of course, so it was like they were really there. I had memorized Euripides' whole catalog of plays, because Humongulus taught them to me when he was real. We performed those plays twice over. The guards must have heard me and told someone, because I was offered a job. One day, a distinguished-looking man hired me to teach his children. I left the small area I called my home for months. In my new home, I spent the day teaching my master's children as they hacked my shins. When they got older and stronger, they pushed me into things. One day, my master came to me and said, "Now that the kids are teenagers, I don't need you anymore. I have sold you." My old master attached a chain to my collar and led me to the harbor, where I met a small child. "Who are you?" he demanded. My name is Jerricles. Who are you?" "Jerricles?" said the boy, surprised. "You're my uncle? But you're so weird and off-putting." A man behind the boy spun around. "By gods, it is Jerry," said my brother Bob, who I did not expect to appear. "You still look like you did a decade ago." "Yeah," I said. "I think I have been given a mission by the gods. It has been 9 years since I was sent home, before the massacre. It took a long time for my agents to find you. Having a transportation company helped." "How many made it back home?" I asked. "Effectively none," replied my brother. In the intervening decade, I married and had a child. Then Alcibiades returned. He said he had a plan to beat the Spartans, and Athens forgave him. After a few defeats, he ran off again. He was killed recently, after making enemies of both Sparta and Persia. Oh, I said, as I put my Alcibiades figure away. So what, did we win the war? The Spartans made a deal with the Persians and were given a navy. There was a final naval battle at the Hellespont. The Spartans won the battle. They blockaded Athens until we surrendered out of hunger. I was just happy that the war was over. So, we lost? I said. The last 27 years of war were just a total waste? Yep, said my brother. The Spartans left the garrison and put a board of 30 people friendly to Sparta in charge of Athens. Huh, more like a board of 30 tyrants. Now that I have found you, you can be my political proxy and help me free Athens. I remembered my brother had lost his arm. He wore a cloak that obscured the limb that wasn't there. He would need me to speak in the assembly for him, if there was still an assembly. "My name is Herodotus, by the way," said the boy. "I forgot to introduce you to your new nephew," said Bob. "He is named after his grandfather, our father." "I like how he knows you're weird," said my dad. "He reminds me of me. By the way, this is the first time you thought of me in years. Didn't you remember me telling you about living as long as you didn't forget me?" "Sorry," I said. "I forgot." "Of course," said Bob. "If you're going to be allowed to speak at the assembly, you will have to be a member of the Pentacosio Medenmoi class. So I will have to adopt you into the family, Jerry, as my son." "Really?" I said in disbelief. "Yes," affirmed Bob. "It's time to go home, son." "Yes," I said. "Let's go home, Dad." What the heck? Is he my uncle and brother now? What's going on?